Hello. Welcome. Almost ready here, chat. Welcome to the office hours. Paul, Berserker, Batman, Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the pub. Got a good one for you. This is a live stream where we got Star Citizen lore news and more stuff to talk about. It's also kind of a dead week. So, see, every time I say this is going to be a short one, it always ends up being a long one. But honestly, I don't know how much energy I have to kind of go full dive into Star Citizen, especially with all of the new stuff coming out, and I want to leave other things today. So. Is this live or just live? It's live, and just live. Escape Dragon Wilds. Yeah, that's what I want to hear, chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, tell me. What are you playing other than Star Citizen this weekend? Oh, Lord. I don't even want to know how bad it is. For those of you who don't know, it is free flight.
This was unintended.
Yeah, we have to protect all the relics now. Latest BG3 content patch. Space Marine 2 got a new patch. The good, bad, and the buggy. Construction Simulator is a better game than Star Citizen. Lots of games that are better than Star Citizen. For now. Yeah, I am live with Chat Spirit. Exactly. Hiri, we all need to take arms this weekend to test a pizza. Okay. Not even that buggy. There just isn't enough gameplay right now. That's the point. There isn't a lot of, like, good in-depth gameplay. Did I see the post? I didn't see the post. Do this thing that apparently... So in the bottom of the barrel segment, for those of you who don't know, I do this every so often where I do a thing called bottom of the barrel, which usually is me looking at like Spectrum to see complaining about something that's entirely ridiculous. And it was effectively a post that somebody was saying that the devs never respond to players. They never respond. And then someone was like, what about all of this entire section, which is, you know, the IG responding to players. The SE staff responding to players. It does like, it has kind of disappeared. To the very bottom. Development. Track there. You have to kind of go to a different. Hey, my mic is cutting out? Okay, let me see if it's going on. Oh yeah, that's because I got my nose gate on. Gotta turn that off. There we go. Hey, Citizen Joel. CIG's trying to rush 4.1.1 for release next week or the week after. That makes sense. My guess would be April 30th, so they're trying to do a stress test. Oh, they're doing it by making the Polaris available for everybody. What do you think of the concern about people raising about Idris being available for people to steal in 4.11, but still being held back from pledgers? What? Like, this is where I make a lot of people mad. I don't care. Like, being able to steal an Idris and fly it around. You've been able to steal an Idris and fly it around since, like, the freaking... Oh, what is it? Since the since Xeno threat. Arlington Gang is that, but it was before that. Yeah, it's been... You've been able to do that for a while. The fact you can do it now, it's like, okay. It's just, that's not that much difference. I think it's now that it's more programmed in to do it, but I mean, I'm also of the opinion that I think CIG just needs to release the Idris. Like, just release it. I think they're going to release it. I think they're going to release it this year when they make the final announcement date of Squadron 42, which my guess would be at either, I still think it's going to be at Gamescom, but it could be at CitizenCon Direct. It's final testing, yeah. They just have to change the outside skin to match that of Squadron 42's. I don't think that CIG will... Years now, stolen Idris back before COVID, thanks to the Vaughn mission. Yeah, like I said, it's been around since Xeno threat in 2018 or 2019. Well, no, because the outer hull of the Idris in Squadron 42 is a different hull than the one that is in-game in Star Citizen right now. They are actually different models. So they need to just apply the model, the new model that they created for Squadron for the Idris to the Idris that we have in-game. They'll probably keep both, to be honest. I don't see why. Maybe they'll keep the out exterior for the P, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to have to support two different, like, versions of the same ship, in a sense of, like, exterior hull changes like that when they're basically the same thing. I also don't think it's a huge deal. I think it's just CIG hasn't bothered the process of importing that to Star Citizen. I also think the main reason why we don't see the Idris in game right now is for players to use it is because engineering isn't in game. I think that's the one thing that CIG is probably currently, not necessarily forever, standing on, is that they need to get the engineering in game because it needs to be able to play with engineering before they can release it. As far as we know, engineering is pretty much done. They did a pretty big overhaul like last month or the month beforehand. They're definitely in the like finishing touches of it. The issue is that engineering would probably cause too many issues with the game as it stands right now, which is the reason why they don't want to release it. GQ, that's their point. That's Knowledge's point. Yeah, it's just they just haven't pulled from the main branch yet. Yeah, I saw. Everyone gets a Polaris for PTU testing. So what's the role of Idris P? It's a patrol ship. And that front area where the missiles are in the M becomes either a cargo area or a prison, I want to say. Yeah, the bugginess of it. So yeah. There two more or more attack? What do you mean? Socially confused. I mean, servers are already going to be on fire because it's free flight. By the way, it's free flight. Sign up with my referral code. You want to try out the dumpster fire that will be Star Citizen this weekend. So the M is the military variant, and the K is an aftermarket upgrade. So the K is just the P, but with a laser, with a big fat laser rather than a railgun, or rather than nothing. The M is a standalone. I don't think you can take off the railgun on the front of the M. It also has the a missile bay, like a size 7 missile array in the front, missile turret with like huge missile capabilities. And the P removes that missile turret and that missile to replace it with, I think, cargo bay or a prison, and it removes the railgun. So and then the K is just an upgrade kit, an aftermarket upgrade kit to the P that just gives it a laser railgun made by Hurston Dynamics. So they're doing 2 back-to-back free flights, this one and one for Invictus. Yeah, but it's not really back-to-back because Invictus doesn't start until May, I would say May 24th, maybe May 22nd, but it's going to go a little bit longer because usually it starts like at the second to last week of May and goes through the first week of June. Never. Ever. Take away my space game.
Just resubscribed for 6 months. Ring the barbell. Round of drinks on me.
Thank you so much. That's 6 months of support there, Citizen Dance. You're very important, Papa. Very impressive. Mr. Very pedestrian. This is your fault. Your turn drinking night. Shots and cheers and chat. Y'all shots and cheers. I'm also going to announce right now, because I haven't been able to stream a lot this last couple of weeks because of testing and such. Next week I'm going to be streaming a fuck ton. Like, I'm going to be streaming on Wednesday next week. I'm going to be streaming on Thursday. Streaming on Friday. Streaming on Saturday and Sunday and that Monday. And I'm going to be doing my pubathon on that Saturday. Size 10 laser beam, 4-point defense turrets that replace the remote turrets, and a missile turret that replace the man turret. All subject to change. No. Let me turn it down a little bit. How I'm going to return it down is simply by doing this. There you go. I've thought about it. Chris, the issue with me doing this full time is I have to make not like double the amount of money. I have to make like 4 times the amount of money I'm currently making streaming. To give you context, last year I made about $30,000 doing this content. That was my revenue, not profit. I profited $500. While I'm teaching, I'm going to be making somewhere between $65,000 and $70,000 next year, thanks to legislations just passed the Texas House and Senate. So I need to be able to profit $60,000 to $70,000 to make up for what I make as a teacher. I made $500 last year. So while I think I'd love to do it, it's just not feasible with the current popularity that Star Citizen has.
Drugs.
Yeah. Because we're not talking about like I'm not a single guy living in a cheap apartment or like living with a roommate or something like that. I have a wife. I have a house and a mortgage. The big thing is I've been teaching for 10 years, so I make 60,000, or a little over 50,000, 55,000. So they just passed a new law where they give teachers raises, and it's basically if you live in an urban area, the state's going to give you a $5,000 bonus, and if you live in a rural area and away from the cities, they give you a $10,000 bonus. That's because like teachers in Texas, rural Texas, make $30,000 a year, 30 to 40. So, you know, there's no incentive for people to go to the countryside to teach because you just don't make a lot of money. And North Carolina actually makes $38K with masters. Yeah, no, we master's degree here in Texas, you'd probably be making in an urban area if you can get a job. That's the key part, especially with music. That's the hard part. Star Citizen doesn't need WoW numbers to succeed because Star Citizen isn't really a WoW competitor or a WoW analog. Like, the closest thing I can think of with Star Citizen in terms of its community is something like Arma or the survival games, Ark, DayZ, that sort of thing. DayZ is a pretty niche community, but there are plenty of creators who play DayZ who can do just DayZ content and do fun. What Star Citizen needs is a Bethesda level following, but they need to get Bethesda level games out, which they haven't. Yeah, I wouldn't be making nearly as much money. I still wouldn't be making much money if Star Citizen had WoW numbers, because it would just attract a bunch of new content creators and I'd still get drowned out. I am a lore content creator. I am looking at content creators who do news for Star Citizen, and there are people who have like 4,000 subscribers who are routinely getting 40 to 60K views on their Star Citizen news content. Based off of the numbers I know, with 40 to 60K views in like a week, they're making like several $100s for those videos. The problem is not necessarily that Star Citizen itself can't support many content creators, which it kind of can't. But the content that would do well in Star Citizen is entirely based off of a fleeting and a transitory situation, which I don't want to be a part of because I don't think it's feasible long term. When Star Citizen is no longer just a game in development, but a more complete game, you're going to need to be a content creator for Star Citizen who also happens to do the news, not a news content creator for Star Citizen. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, if you can churn out 4 videos a day or 4 videos a week, or let's just say 2 videos a week, that's what, 8 videos a month, and they each make 40K. The best my videos will do, fully released from a lore perspective, fully released the first month they go live, is about 10 to 12K. Do I get more views down the road? Yes, their views are going to basically drop off of a cliff. But once they get that first initial view, those initial views, they're going to make more money in that short term than I am in the long term. They will still continue to have to make content and they'll have to chase the tail forever, but I'm not making enough residual money from that content yet to really justify any of that. Maybe eventually, when Star Citizen actually has lore in the game and people start paying attention to it, then it will do better. But that's the whole long game of doing lore in Star Citizen. When I started doing it a long time ago, I'm like, I have a feeling this game will do pretty well with lore hounds and people who want to watch and pay attention to the lore of Star Citizen based off of the lore they've created. I'm going to start piecing together stuff and putting together my own style and figuring out what I want to do and learn how to edit, learn how to do all these things I need to do, so that when I'm already in the process of doing content, of making content, of filming myself, editing, figuring out what I want to do, by the time the like casual lore content creator comes to Star Citizen and goes, oh, there's lore here, let's do some lore here, I've already gotten an audience which is already kind of tapped into that. And that's part of, I knew and still do know that this isn't going to be a popular thing. One of my problems is I just don't do it enough. I need to do more frequently. And that's the trade-off when you're doing content. I know that if I did content full time, I would make more money. Like, straight up, I would be better off if I made content full time than I am now. The question is how much. Like, I know if I streamed for 8 hours a day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I would be a much bigger content creator than I am now. So I'd probably make more money off of that. If I dedicated myself to do a video a week on Star Citizen lore, and like videos on Star Citizen ships and other things like that, I would do much better. But that amount of work and time takes it away from me, myself being with my wife and, you know, enjoying other things in life that I like to do. And so it's like, is that trade-off worth it for the amount of money, which isn't going to be enough to fully justify it? So, you know, this is just me talking shop, but it's basically saying it's a calculation I'm constantly doing in my head. Yeah, and it burns out a lot. Because at the end of the day, this is a fun hobby that pays for itself. Yeah, I don't think Star Citizen or CIG is necessarily going to be casual friendly when it comes to lore. I think they'll eventually get it, but I think CIG's priority and their main focus is always going to be on gameplay over story. The story is going to be more of a sandboxy story, which is fine, but I think they still have to learn how to tell stories in a sandbox environment effectively. They're getting better at it, and one of the things that CIG has that they do in spades, like their level designers are stunningly good. They are so good. The people who make props and like build the like levels, when they're like built instead of just generated, they are so good at telling stories with the environment that they have. And they're getting better with the placement of things like data pads, and getting better at doing things like little nooks and crannies in different places. So I trust that they're just gonna go from strength to strength with environmental storytelling. The thing is that, as any Bethesda fan knows, myself included, there's a difference between environmental story skeletons and the story. You can be really good at environmental storytelling, but you could bumble the story pretty badly. Hey, Star Stuff, how you doing? Oh, Major, I'm gonna release a Banu lore video this week. I'm gonna plug you at the end. That's not sexual innuendo. I'm just gonna tell them to go watch your video. Banu Banu. Nah, CIG has good. What CIG needs is better coordination between their narrative team and their with the writing team and the narrative team and the rest of the team. From the sounds of things of how CIG has talked about how development is going, what they really need is cohesive support. They need to actually throw support behind the teams who are doing narrative to give them what they need. And they seem to be doing that. Looking at the monthly reports, looking at how the game is developing, they are doing that. It's slow because this is CIG, but they're doing it. The problem is that CIG does their best work learning by failing, which is admirable. I think it's okay to learn by failing. It's just the key part about that part is to fail, recognize you fail, and then adjust afterwards. Failing is normal. Failure is the best teacher you will ever have, but you have to be able to process that failure and return better from that failure in order to better yourself in that way, which I still have yet to see CIG fully commit to. I will end this before we go on to the Inside Star Citizen by saying CIG, either by entire accident or purpose, has managed to sit down and create a cohesive universe of which I have never seen in video games, movies, or television. And by that, I mean they have intentionally, piece by piece, put together a universe that is trying to be as cohesive as possible with all of its desperate elements, all of its different things. So that everything has an explanation is more to do with that they want to make sure that all of the explanations that are being created match up with stuff that already exists. There are still some holes here and there. It's a game in development. They still haven't finished the story yet. But they almost never retcon. And when they do retcon, it's usually small changes, date changes here and there to kind of make things go more cohesive. Pyro is probably their biggest retcon, but again, that has less to do with changing the nature of Pyro as a storytelling location and more just the backgrounds, the backdrops, which if you follow game development, is pretty common, actually. Changing settings for like levels and the order upon which levels happen is not an unusual thing, and it can happen late in development in a lot of games too. So that I don't really consider as much of a retcon, because all they did was change the type of planets and moons that existed, and then they actually created the background for why the system existed. Oh, Nick. All right, well, let's watch this. And who knows what stations? That one is a little pissy. I'm a little pissed off about the Ruin Station thing, because they made a big fucking deal about Ruin Station to only just kind of shirk it off at the last minute. It's like, so Xenothreat isn't fucking a threat anymore. It's the fucking Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready is the most powerful organization. They run Pyro. Like, that's a big fucking deal. And copy pasted the damn station. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. That's more of a gameplay derived narrative thing, and they made it make sense in terms of the narrative, because the original story was that like Ruin Station was the only station they built, which is McEwen Station, which sort of makes sense. But then also they expanded so that the planets themselves, especially Bloom, were heavily mined by Bloom and Monox were heavily mined by and like became logistics hubs for
Pre-subscribed for 7 months. Hey, lucky 7. Hope things are going well. Sad that I can't make it to too many of your streams. Trying to keep up with the votes though.
Thank you so much.
Here's to that.
Thank you so much for watching there, CX. You're very for 7 months of tier 3. You're a very important pupper, very impressive, sir. Very new pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. And they just stopped talking about the Overlords entirely, even though they released armor sets for them. That's, I think, more of a gameplay reason. Like, I don't think the Overlords are necessarily gone. The worst we'll see with the Overlords is that they were a faction that no longer exists, which is what those armors are then remnants of. But the thing about Pyro and how CIG has been running Pyro is that the lore team has like 30 different factions in Pyro alone. They said something like 38 different gangs exist in Pyro that they've written out and have backstories for. It's just a matter of CIG being able to support all those factions in a logical manner. So instead of saying we're going to drop 38 factions at once, good luck, deal with this, they dropped 6, which is still a lot. You know, Frontier Fighters, CFP, Headhunters, Horizon, Fire Rats, Xenothreat, and Rough and Ready, 7. Some of them are more represented than others, and then they just sort of, from there, are going to build on top of that. Horizon, you know. There's a good example of that WoW has for storytelling that Star Citizen doesn't have. In Star Citizen, who is the current big boss villain? We have factions, but not characters. There should never be a big boss villain in Star Citizen. It's a sandbox game. There should be characters, though. There should always be big figures who are larger than life that players can interact with. And we know that there are 2 new mission givers, which are coming in either 4.1 or 4.11, 4.12, or 4.2 as part of the main story campaign. My guess is they're going to be the mission givers for the Headhunters and the CFP. Ships, vehicles are heroes in this game to a degree, but they're more like player heroes than they are the sort of faction heroes that you would follow. There's no Thrall, there's no Jaina Proudmoore, you know, there's no Cade 6, there's no, I'm trying to think of other you know, games. Like there's no characters that you can encounter which will leave an impact on your experience of the game to understand the factions. Boss fights, I think, are good. I think boss fights are fine because mechanically they can work in terms of you fighting factions that are, you know, different factions, especially in Pyro. But they need to be a suitably difficult battle. I've said this many times on the office hours and in other places. I think the way that you do a sandbox game is each faction is represented by a character or multiple characters, and those characters then will interact with other characters from other factions, either through alliances or through conflict. And so you get to see these different characters bounce off each other in the sandbox universe, and players get to back whoever side that they want to, either because cool ship, cool skin, more money, or things like I like them better. Like, they're cool. I like this character. I want to help them, you know. Boss fights are, I always found that boss fights, and maybe this is just my limited perspective because I don't play a lot of games with a ton of boss fights. But in my perspective, I believe that boss fights are best done as culminations of story elements. So, to give you an example, a boss fight in Star Citizen, in my mind, would start off with, hey, we know TC Pacheco calls you up and says, the Ninetales are cutting into our territory. The last time we saw we had a processing plant on Daymar, which they hit, claiming it was their territory. I want you to go to that processing plant, kill every Ninetales member you can find, and figure out who their leader is. And so your job is to go there, kill them, examine the bodies, maybe find some evidence, bring it back to Tecia. She looks at the evidence and goes, this looks like The next, it looks like they're supposed to be here at this location. Go investigate this location and see what's going on. This is supposed to be their logistics hub or something like that. And so you go to that location, you knock it over, you find more information, and each level gets more and more difficult.
Dem biddies.
We are all rats before the star. Heed the whispers of the prophet. Join the fire rats. Let all burn in the fires of pyro.
We're all gonna burn the stars of light eventually. And then as you continue on each mission, it's harder and harder and harder until you finally figure out where the leader of this band of Ninetales is, and your job is to kill them. And it's just like this super long, difficult battle where you're getting dragged out and like you have to like break through an area, and then there's the leader, but the leader is protected by a bunch of minions. Maybe the leader's in a goddamn Titan suit, and you just gotta fucking weather the storm and kick their ass. And you finally beat them, and you're like, I have done this, I have won, you can get some cool shit. And Tiasia goes, those motherfuckers are dead, I did not like them, good job, here's some rep points, you're good. The climax of a storyline of you doing actions to do a thing. As long as they don't just get extra health bars, just a reggy dude. They have to be better, I think, and I think CIG can tune that. It's not something CIG hasn't talked about either. I remember hearing about CIG doing extensive discussions on what a boss fight in Star Citizen should look like, or even in Squadron 42. And I think the balance that CIG should shoot for is they just got to be harder. They just got to be really good. Like better reflexes, they can kill you pretty quickly. You can, not like a traditional boss fight where you can like, they have the timed attacks or anything like that, or anything super special about them. They should be somewhat unique, but also much more difficult, rather than just making them tougher. So giving some bosses just better armor, and then they're also faster than the average NPC, or faster than the average player, or they're using a weapon that's better, like a souped up weapon that's going to do better for attacking you. Or giving them equipment like the Titan suits, where like they become big, literally big bosses where you have to fight them, and they're better equipped than you are. Like thinking like fight a guy in a warehouse. So you know the like the interior warehouses of the distribution centers. One of those rooms in a distribution center where you're locked down, you can't escape, and there's a Titan suit there that's just jumping around and jump jets firing at you with like size 1 weapons. It's got the maneuverability. You can't hurt it unless you shoot specific locations, or you manage to hit it with anti Titan weapons. And as this battle goes on, the ads come in and pull you off. You know, like the doors open and out spills a bunch of random mobs, you know, who are gonna fucking shoot you and drag your health down even further. Howdy, Paul. I missed last stream because I was listening to the Stormlight Archives. Anything critical I missed? Not that I know of. I mean, the big one was I built a new PC. I built the new computer, so. Do we think, what do we think the new the Anvil Hermes is? Anvil Hermes? Someone asked earlier about the Asgard. I think it makes sense. The Asgard's just a vehicle transport, would be my guess. That would be really, make medical gameplay even more important. You need a medic to help keep you alive, yeah. Listening to Stormlight. Why no read? Pipeline, bro, pipeline. I'm not going to bother. The thing is, I'm going to be honest with you. There's nothing wrong with pipeline. But reading too much into pipeline's information that you can find in the files is always a danger. Because CIG will put shit in the files to A, fuck with you, B, that's temporary, or C gets removed later because they decide to change things. Exclamation point PC there. My name is too long to annoy people, and that'll let you know what my gaming PC is now. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, at one point, Pipeline was convinced that there would be a jump point from Hurston to Microtech because it was rigged in game, like it should exist in game. So they're like, we're going to have a jump point from Hurston to Microtech. I said that's not how jump points work, and they said we don't care. And I was like, oh, that's what the game tells us. I'm like, well, the game's wrong. I don't know why that is, but you know. It's doing really well. The new PC is doing very, very well. In some places, especially around Polaris's, it drops. But like to give you context, the performance drops on my new PC when the one time I had a significant performance drop was when there was 4 different Corsairs at one of the Pyro outposts and a Polaris, all parked at that one outpost. And I only dropped down to what I was getting at max, like my average amount that I was getting for my old rig, like 40 to 60 FPS. On average, I get 90 FPS with the new rig. I don't know if the 9070, I imagine it's pretty good because I have a 90 or 79 XT. I have a 9070 XT. So trolling data miners. Yeah, CIG has done it multiple times because they know that data miners are looking at them. So I would never read too much into what CIG is putting on there right away. Does that mean there's no Hermes? No, there could be a Hermes, but I wouldn't necessarily think we're going to get a ton of information about it in game. We might be a video thing we get or something like that. Because like we're going to get more ships anyways, but it could also have its name change. Like Hermes is very much a name that goes more along the lines of a Crusader ship. So I don't think that's going to be the case. And they already have the Mercury. So 9070 XT Saint, not 9070. And that it doesn't have the cables. The one that I have doesn't have the small cable things that break. It's the normal cables. I checked when I was building it. It's the normal big thick boy cables. It has my power source has a slot for the tiny 12 volt, but Hermes Conrad, lead bureaucrat for the Kovalex shipping now. How good will Warhammer 40K look now on the new rig, Paul? Space Marine, fucking amazing, almost certainly. It's got the new Space Marine has the support for the new FSR. So, all right, I've been putting this off. Let's go. Let's watch some hairstyles. I'm gonna turn off the desktop audio. Turn off the limiter. Here we go.
That's the first thing I must say. My career took a curve. I was a lead character artist at another company. One of the things that scared me the most at that time was hair, because it is one of the hardest tasks. And I just tackled it so well, I guess, that I started to get praise for it.
For those of you who don't know, ask any 3D artist about hair. The two things that 3D artists fear more than anything else is cloth physics and hair. Because hair is weird and it's really hard to make look right. Trust me, I have a natural head of hair. This is all natural. The number of times people have asked, is this a fucking wig, is too goddamn much. Like, why would I have a wig with a bald spot? God damn it.
Praise in a way that I never got as a character artist. And that's how it went. I never planned to be a digital hairdresser of any sort.
So if CIG can manage to do, and so far they've been able to do, to really get hair right, lordy, that man, you need to keep this man. This man needs to be protected at all costs, CIG.
I've been in love with Star Citizen since ever. It's been actually my dream for all along. When I started learning character art, this is what I wanted to work.
Oh, nice.
When I started here, one of the things people were making fun of me, former colleagues were like, oh great, Andre, you just signed a contract to make hair for a game. Everyone wears a helmet. And that made me think. Rest assured, nowadays, I'm proud to log into Star Citizen and just see that a lot of people is now wearing their hairs and not the helmets. When I got here, the first thing was to try not to scrap everything that was made. Obviously, there was a lot of things that were properly made that just wouldn't fit for every purpose that we wanted. The first hair I created took me a bit of time.
Look at that. Hold on, let me back it up a little bit.
For every purpose that we wanted.
That's a model, by the way. That is a JRDF model. In that right there. Unless it's cruise time, do you ever take your helmet off? I don't. No, but I think CIG will eventually make that happen. That's not, that Gladius is in JRDF? It's not your model. Mango Store made that one? Oh, okay.
The first hair I created took me a bit of time. The first results were kind of disappointing. I was still learning the tools, learning the process, learning the new engine that we use. But after like 3 weeks, I managed to create one hair. We finally took it to a meeting. My first time in front of CR. I actually made sure I read everything that CR has written about hair that was on our register, so I knew what he wanted. I think that was kind of smart because it had an impact on him immediately. The next morning after that meeting, I wake up with a message on our creative chat saying something, how happy he was that we had finally someone that was tackling hair in the way that he wanted. I'm like, all right, okay, we're on the right path, I thought. During this process, Ian actually told me, okay, Andre, what do you need to make this work for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen? And I'm like, he wanted to have 70 hairs from February till December so that we can do the first chapters of Squadron 42. Doing my math.
You can play Star Citizen with a mid-range grade PC build. Just make sure you have a minimum 32 gig rigs and a graphics card of 12 gigs. Yes. That's basically what I have. I have the 2070, or the 2070, I had a 2070 Super. I now have a 9070 XT AMD, and it has 16 gigabytes of RAM, VRAM. I have 48 gigabytes of RAM in my my rig, so it's just over 32, so it can do pretty well. And I have a 4 terabyte SSD. That's the other thing, is an SSD. You need to have an SSD to run this game. But if you have 12, it can work pretty well. 32 is pretty good for like memory as well. And that means that like the minimum you should have is a 3060. Because the 3060 is 12 gigs. So yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think I have 6. The 2070 Super has like 6. I might have 8. It worked fine, but obviously I was experiencing the upper end of capabilities, so.
That's really fast. If I was to do it myself, it would take like 2 years. Even if I take like 3 to 5 days per hair, normally a hair before I arrived was taking 20 to 40 days. The only solution was to hire more hands, to hire more people, and I needed people that would hit the ground running. It had to be people that I knew that could do the work, and in that sense I presented the proposal to Ian and to CR. They agreed to everything, and that's how we did it. We basically...
I love that. That's concept art right there, and that's the that's them working on the actual character.
Basically put the guys in. Instead of 70 hairs, by December we had 130 hairs because we did not only do the squadron ones, we actually...
Yeah, if you have a 30 series card, you're pretty much golden. Like 30 series is perfect. And same goes along the lines of like the 780 XTX, woo, 7800 XTX, woo, bet you fine. 32 gigabytes of VRAM, woo, you can brute force that thing.
Revamped the character customizer. We added beards, which weren't even in the plan back then. It was a risky bet, but I took the process under my wing. I grabbed the guys, and it worked. So, and for that, I got some praise and got some recognition in the company, which comes with the risk that I've taken, of course. So where do we start with the hair? There must be an idea first, an intention, of course. Star Citizen is a bit different from Squadron. In Squadron, we're trying to do digital clones. Obviously, in that case, we're going to take as much pictures, as much references of the real person and try to mimic that into the video game. As for Star Citizen, which is a bit more broad, we sometimes require a concept, sometimes we have a more broader idea that we want to go. We are production artists, we are not concept artists, so that's not what we do. What we really need to work is that the idea comes solid at us and it's very clear what's intended. Whatever references we can use, we make a mood board, and from there we start our own development. It's important to understand that the system that I implemented here, it kind of removes from the artist the ability to mess it up, in the sense that I control the textures and the shaders, so that means the beginning of the process and the ending of the process. I've tested them, I make sure they work, and so I give to the artist the pleasurable part of just doing the asset itself, and therefore there's no fruit salad. What we want is basically a quality that is standard, that stays the same throughout the game, and if I gave them the ability to create their own textures, we would have hairs, some would be very thick, some would be very thin, some would be different, and it would render different. So I removed these two parts of the process out of the equation by sorting it myself, giving them only the pleasurable part. I don't have any other word for it. Sounds kinky, doesn't it?
The fun stuff.
He's not wrong.
Enjoyable, I guess. Making hair for games, there's a lot of limitations to it. Our game being fast-paced and all, MMO. The way to keep it performant and the way to keep it working is by trying to establish limits of how far you can go. When I started, I remember the lead tech artist telling me, Andre, there's no limit to what you can do, just go, you know, there's no budget of try count, there's no budget. And I'm like, how can that be? I mean, I've been doing games for a while, and there is limitations, okay? He was just letting me be free enough to create and letting me establish the limit so that they can then adapt. I was very conservative. We all have performant hairs. Some in Squadron 42 are a bit heavier because we just need to hit that quality bar, but mostly are all very performant. What you do is you just use what you need and you don't use what you don't need, basically.
You know, one of the first things that's going to happen is players are going to make a mod to change the hair colors out for Squadron 42. People are going to change the hair and overhaul the models and all that kind of stuff. We will get Anime 42 within like a year of Squadron 42 releasing.
What are you working on for 2025?
2025 comes with creatures and more hairs for the character customizer. That's the main thing. There's also armors that are going to start to have a bit of hair. Hair, not hair, human hair, but you know, types of fur or types of synthetic hair.
Give me a fur coat, CIG. Give me that Viking armor.
So we created a lot of hairs which are recognizable. We were trying to break barriers. The character customizer is like this nowadays because we were trying to push the shader and see where we could go. Tools programmers and shader programmers were coming to me and say, hey Andre, I didn't know our shader could do this type of things. And as I got this type of feedback, I was, okay, let's push this and see how far we can go. And so we have a bit of a range which is a bit too wide for now in terms of hairs that we're using. One of the last meetings with CR regarding this aspect, he told me, Andre, what we need now is Jared's hair, is Andre's hair. Move away from the outrageous, move away from the military hairstyles. That's the direction for now, to get established a good solid base of hairs. And on the creatures, we're going a bit wilder now.
Ooh, look at that.
We're starting to push the limits.
It's got titties. It's got the throat cancer and the titties. What the fuck is this thing? Is this supposed to be a goat?
As the fully covered with fur creatures and stuff like that. Before we started with small patches of fur here and there on the creatures, and now we're just making all things together.
Welcome, Overall Ghost.
Well, I'm eager to do hairstyles that will be longer than the limitation that we currently have. Our current limitation is the shoulders, simply because...
Yeah, that's definitely a concept, right? You can see the paint strokes. I like it, though. I like this sort of... This is, again, this reminds me very much of, like, OPA. That sort of, you know, modern Viking attire look, so.
The way the armors work and the helmets work, and we don't want it to be clipping all along, so I'm really looking at the day that we can make hairs that are longer, and I'd love to do like a big dreadlock that goes straight down. Yeah, so I'm really, really proud of my team. Everything that I said here is basically a teamwork. My team does not
That high fade, baby.
involve only the people under me. It also involves the people above that feed me with stuff and that help me get better. The hair story here has been a success, and has been a success because we're working together, and that's the only reason. As, I wouldn't be here talking or doing anything. I wouldn't have been a CitizenCon stage without any of them, so that's very clear to me. We are now through a moment that we can create any hairstyle that we want, and I'm very proud of that.
And with more than 30 new hairstyles scheduled to make their way into the persistent universe across each remaining patch this year.
Moment that story here has been a success, and has been a success because we're working together, and that's the only reason. As, I wouldn't be
I don't see the
here
green hex
talking
sign.
or doing anything. I wouldn't have been a CitizenCon stage
Oh, this one. This is JRDF. Neat.
without any of them, so that's very clear to me. We are now through a moment that we can create any hairstyle that we want, and I'm very proud of that.
And with more than 30 new hair.
Tack. Tack. Tack.
And with more than 30 new hairstyles scheduled to make their way into the persistent universe across each remaining patch this year, the options for self-expression in Star Citizen are just one more way 2025 will continue to deliver more content than ever before.
He's really leaning into that newscaster role, isn't he?
Now, I also want to tell you about this new Squadron 42 Spotlight that's being delivered directly to inboxes right now about every 2 months or so. It comes with timed exclusives, never before seen visuals, audio files, story information, all that kind of stuff included. So don't forget to check your inboxes for that, and then of course opt in through the account settings on the website if you really want that content before everyone else. And then of course for those of you with friends, nobody here. With friends thinking about trying out Star Citizen, our very first free fly of the year starts today with 6 vehicles to choose from. The universe truly is better with friends, or so I'm told. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. As always, thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week. It's WrestleMania weekend.
Someone start texting Jared. I saw C Daddy here. C Daddy, tell Proxys to message Jared and say that the fans demand him in J. Jonah Jameson screaming, "Bring me pictures of Spider-Man, Parker." What'd you miss? You missed it all. The whole thing. Did I? That's outrageous. I'll take it. I can't do a good, what's the actor?
Drinks all around.
Let's party like it's your birthday. Party like it's your birthday. Come on and put your lips together. Blow the candle out. Party like it's your birthday.
Thank you.
Party like it's your birthday. I wanna make you feel real special. Put your name in lights. We are gonna party like it's your birthday. Gonna party like it's your birthday. Gonna party like it's your birthday. Blow the candle out.
C Daddy_Sig just got a sub from Eerie Strettide. Eerie Strettide gifted a tier 1 sub to C Daddy_Sig. They have given 102 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you so much for that, giving that sub to C Daddy. Their ears, you're both very important puppers, very impressive sisters, very good pedestrians. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. Yes, C Daddy. We tell at least somebody at CIG that the fans demand Jared doing his best J. Jonah Jameson impression. That's it. That's the answer. We need a pun for J. Jonah Jameson because I'm not calling Jared's newscaster character what his name is. Whatever the cat newscaster's name is not what I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him like space J. Jonah Jameson. J. Jared Jaredson. I love that. I love it. I'm stealing that. Thank you, Iris. J. Jonah Jaredson. There we go. For those of you who don't know, Jared's playing the role of a sort of a TikTok style news announcer who does like 60-second news briefs that's going to be pushed out to the verse for later this year. I'll bring him next week when I see him in a meeting. Spectrum Shorts. Yeah. Welcome to it. You can also put my name in there. See, Daddy? You can tell him that Paul's chat said this. I think he would appreciate it. He's Omni-Man from Invincible. He is a Viltrumite. Jared is a Viltrumite. God, can we get a Viltrumite? God, we are going to do that, aren't we? I fully expect we're going to get like the 501st. Someone's going to create the 501st and just have everyone be, what's the actor's name who plays all of the clones? I forgot his name, but just versions of him. They'll make one version and they're going to share it to the entire org. I'll derail a production meeting to bring it up. Listen, I have a long history of intentionally delaying Star Citizen's development by at least 24 hours. I've done it at least twice in my entire career as a streamer. Tamara Morrison? Yes. Someone's going to do an entire organization of Tamara Morrison. You know? It was worth it. There were some Army boys thought they could do training in our parking lot, so we put them in their place. That's nice. Jared Binks. Got nothing on a big haul in loot I've got to sell. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. So remember how how like relics and artifacts have been pointless and worthless? We've been collecting them for the sake of history and preservation. Well, guess who's sitting on a giant hoard that you need to be able to build a fucking Polaris? Well, me and the rest of lore. That's the new news. If you want to get a Polaris, you have to get a pristine Tavaran service war marker. Locust, my name is Paul, Berserker1, Batman Show, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub and Draftron. Your space bar at the end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. Welcome to the Office Hours. This is my Yak Yak stream.
You can take away my space suit.
Where we talk about Star Citizen lore news and more.
My space lasers.
Good night, Chris. Well, I'm going to bring up the great news that I want to explore because
take away my space
lore just became rich. Because you can't buy pristine Tavaran War service markers. I think you can at least.
Jedi Chris 73 just resubscribed for 11 months.
Thank you so much for 11 months of support there, Jedi. You're a very important pub, very impressive, very neat pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. For those of you who haven't heard, the the requirements to get the in-game Polaris from Wicklow. One of the items you need to get is a pristine Tavaran War service marker. I've seen them. I have seen the pristine ones. I'd have to double check to see where they are in my inventory. I have to find them, but yeah. Relics are pretty common in loot boxes at PAF sites and the PTU. I don't think I've had multiple people tell me that they have a hard time finding the Tavaran War service markers, though. It's the marker. So the service marker is different from the medals. There are medals you can get as well. But the easiest place to find relics and the most consistent place to find relics, Fanman, is not the PAF sites. We found two. I've been in groups at least 3 times where we found 2 of them scouring through the whole thing. There is a place where you're guaranteed to find one every single time you show up. The Tavaran service markers are hard to find. Like they're not easy to find. They're one of the harder ones that show up. But there are places you can get them. I'm not going to spill the beans, but anybody who's been following me for the last 2 years knows where we go to find relics. There is a place that is guaranteed to have a relic in it at any time. Now you may show up and it's already been looted, but there's always, every time we've been to these locations in the verse, well, as long as the loot is spawned, there's always at least 1, sometimes 3 to 4 relics you can find in those places. So I'm wondering, should we hoard the pristine service markers and specifically never sell them, or should I start putting them on the market for $1 million? For a donation to the museum. $1 million credit donation to the museum, and you'll get yourself a Tavaran service marker. Hoard. Listen, we're not hoarding. We're preserving them. Okay? They're historical artifacts that need to be protected at all costs. It belongs in a museum. Donate them to the museum and write them off on your taxes. The museum we're going to build to hoard all of these, to display all of these artifacts. Listen, Wicklow we'll talk with Wicklow eventually. Well, they're going to get wiped. Like when they do wipes, they'll get wiped. I don't even know how many we have yet. We're probably going to have to do inventory now that CIG is finally like caving to our demands of the relics actually having value. Someone's going to figure out, Red Marine, you know where that is. You know where we go. You've been part of the fucking the lore excavations. You know where we go. How very British of us, taking all the places of history and sending them back to home for preservation. Listen, they're not using it. Most of the time, they're in places where they're just sort of in refuse piles. We're rescuing them from oblivion. Okay. Yeah, TK, we're always recruiting. Just we're the League of Relic Enthusiasts on Spectrum. You can also find us on our Discord as well. So The Lore Museum sounds like a bunch of gangsters now. Listen, we're not, okay? We're a legitimate amateur historical preservation group who just want to preserve the past. We also need money to keep that past, that preservation running. So for the right donation, you can get a loan of an artifact. The joke is the League of Relic Enthusiasts. We put the AR in archaeology. We also participate in gunboat archaeology. Oh, you haven't? Maybe it's a different red I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's on the same Discord. It's on the AstroPub Discord. We have our own section of the AstroPub Discord that's that. Sounds like the armed archaeologist company I run in my heavy gear campaign. Yeah, it's something like that. Except we're armed with tanks and mechs. That's not too different from what we do. It's my organization. Like when CIG gives me a mech, a combat mech, I am going to wear that to every lore operation. This is a negotiation, Paul, and I am negotiating with my guns. It's called aggressive excavation. But yeah, no, the Tavarian service markers, I think it's Tavarian service markers and the 6th platoon medal, I want to say, are the big ones. Not to mention the capital ship, too, a couple. Dropping it on 5 Ninetales with a full 10-man squad of Titan suits. There's no such thing as overkill. The negotiations will be short, yeah. Made my org to search for interstellar archaeology. The joke of lore was always that when they added these relics and other things in game, I was like, you know what? I just want to do excavations where we go out and look for these things. And once I figured out that it was kind of fun, I said, you know, let's do an organization where the whole goal is to be not a professional historical or real like archaeological sort of dig, but to be sort of like, you know, like your local historical preservation society, if they were a militia. You know, like imagine your local historical society with like the like empty nester dad, the like grandma, the like excited young, just fresh out of college kid. That's sort of, you know, the local color where you go there and you want to learn a little bit more about your local history of where you are. That's us, only we're armed to the teeth. At what age does an item become an artifact? Or when does it not grave robbing anymore? Well, I mean, legitimately, one of the ideas that we have is when base building comes in, we're going to build a museum on a location, and you can come visit the museum, and we're going to have, we'll put up like a gladius. And we'll have like ships there that you can deactivate it obviously and kind of stripped, but you can see with little information packets.
Them biddies.
What happens when you put your local historical society into a universe with 200 times more guns than brain cells? Law, League of Relic Enthusiasts. Join now. Do you want to know more?
Thank you for the biddies. Hands up, do not resist. Or your historical and cultural distinctiveness will be added to our own. Your cooperation is appreciated. Will this mean safe space or lawless space? We're still negotiating that. I think we talked the officers and I have discussed that. It'll probably be in a space that is at least neutral, where anyone can come visit, but it is not as hostile. if our HG gear is anything to go by, it's not grave robbing if their corpses are still above ground. But the idea is we'll have like ships and we'll have specific places that'll be dedicated to like the Tavaran Wars, to the Jumptown Wars, to the Vandal invasions. So like we'll have like display cases where you can see these different things and you can go walk around and enjoy it, because CIG says you can lock down these things for like a showcase. And so we'll just make what effectively CIG says is a showcase, but it's impossible to purchase the things. So you can't actually steal anything, but you could walk around. And so we'll just have a small fee where you come in, you pay, 10 credits, 100 credits. And if you want to pay a little bit more, we might have somebody on hand who can give you guided tours. We'll do events. We'll do fundraising events where you can come in and bring your organ and have a nice little in-game meeting, and you get to walk around the museum and all that kind of stuff. Some Nyx or something like Nyx, maybe Castra. We'll see. Will there be a gift shop where you can buy extras? Yes, of course. You exit through the gift shop. That's required. But what are the chance of exploring ancient ruins in game? I think that'll happen. Oh yeah, there's an entire system that's just ancient ruins. It's called the Hades system, and it's actually not too far away. For funsies, because we don't have a lot more to talk about, I'm gonna pull up the star map so you can see. So here's the star map. So let's go to Stanton. Here's Pyro. There's Stanton. Okay. So Pyro and Stanton. We're going to turn on all the jump gates so we can see the different spots. There's Terra. There's Magnus. So where are you, Hades? I think you're around here. So I know you're close by. Can't be by soul. There it is. So it's a little far away, but here's Stanton. You'd have to go to Magnus, Ellis, Nexus, and then Hades. So it's about 1, 2, 3, 4 systems away. It is a neutral system. Nexus is sort of a neutral hostile system. It's kind of like Nyx. It's an active war zone. Ellis is where the Murray Cup takes place. This would be another big system. And of course, Magnus is the headquarters of Drake. The only other way you could do it is if you go by Cathcart, Davian, Kano, and Pyro. But I don't think we're going to get Davian anytime soon. So. We should set up next to the Nyx system. Well, Hades system. We'll definitely have at least a outpost in the Hades system. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can turn this into a 2D version. So it's like boop, 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 boop. Yeah, that'll help a little bit. Because I just got to find Hades. So yeah. Hades is Nexus, Ellis, Magnus, Stanton. The cool part is by Banu Space. But it's not the only one. Bacchus has its own relics. So does Terra. Terra has relics in it too. They have stels from an ancient civilization that once lived on Terra. I always forget that UE has about as much on hand in their systems as I have in my spending habits. The UEE systems, if I turn off everything but the UEE systems, there are... Let's see. There's a couple. There's like 12. There's like 30, if I remember correctly. There's like 20 to 30 systems that are affiliated with UE directly. Box is a binary system? Ooh, neat. I didn't realize that. All right, I'll be right back, chat. Don't go anywhere. If you're watching this after the fact, mute until I come back because chat's going to go crazy.
Distress bacon.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
Genesis. Genesis. Barcelona! 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 Barcelona!
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Genesis.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
Hello, I like money.
Barcelona! Barcelona!
Mission complete. Burrito I eat. There you go.
Genesis.
Hello, I like money.
I killed the fun. Only about half of them played. I can turn back on the overlapping, but if I'm turning back the overlapping, I'm removing freedom. What I have to do is I'm going to have to fix it so that, why do I hate freedom? Because it keeps getting me fucking demonetized, okay? Yeah. You're right, freedom ain't free. Oh no, it'll have a place in the stream soundboard, but you're gonna have to pay for it. No, it's not even that. It's from a clip. Because I took it from a clip and YouTube recognizes it as the clip of the movie. And I don't think the clip that I use for it is, it's from a YouTube video, but I don't even think that YouTube video is owned by the company that owns the rights to Braveheart. I think it's just that dude keeps striking my content. Yeah. Yeah, basically I'll move it to a bits sort of thing. I'll make it, you know, reasonable, like 100 bits for it, so like $1.
Them biddies.
Maybe time to switch it for a Monty Python soundbite.
Oh, I'm gonna do more. Like there's an orc soundbite I need to put in there. I need to find some other good sound bites. I need to put in the I say we take off and nuke it from orbit, you know. The one that everyone keeps doing it. Shipmaster, we're outnumbered 3-1. Then it's a fair fight. I need that. Do you want to know more? Yeah. Let them fight. Yeah.
Them biddies.
Should use some Wing Commander clips. Lol.
I should. Give her a broadside, Mr. Jones. Yeah, I gotta turn off the limiter. Jack in the Box on 3. 1, 2, 3. Too many lines from that movie. I knew those lines from the movie before I was a Star Citizen fan. That scene is burned into my brain for whatever reason. When they're in the asteroid belt and they pop up and start attacking the ComCom. Oh yeah, 1 ping, please. The problem about Wing Commander the movie is that there are some really good lines in it, but the actors who are the best actors in that film have none of the good lines. Like the best well-known actors in it, almost none of them have quotable lines. Yeah, it's free on YouTube. 1 ping only, Vasily. The pilots were all kind of shit. Like, is it Matthew? Tables Saturday. Matthew Lillard. Yeah, like Matthew Lillard, he feels like he's all over the place. There's just not really many lines that are quotable from him. Freddie Prinze Jr. does okay, but he definitely like is very. They apparently changed the script. Yeah, I'm with you, Dirk. Like I was the same place. Like the first time I saw Wing Commander was on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I was at that age where like I think it was like 2003, 2004. It was around when like I first got back into console gaming because I'd been playing like Nintendo 64 up to that point. In GameCube, when I was starting to get into like serious adult gaming. And like Halo was my game that I was playing the shit out of and following the community and all that kind of stuff. When Wing Commander came out, I was like, or when I saw that on the Sci-Fi Channel, I was like, this isn't a good movie, but damn, does this action fucking slap? You know, like this feels like a fucking action movie, like a good science fiction space action movie. You just don't see those. Chris has gone on record to say that basically they gave him a promise of money. So like they gave him money to work with. And halfway through pre-production, the producers got cold feet and ripped half the budget away. So they had to scramble to put something together, which is why they ended up using those sort of like really weird looking fighters, and why the Kilrathi look weird, because they had a full like animatronic like creature creation or like a full suit for the Kilrathi that looked like they did in the video games, that they sort of like swapped for rubber masks because they ran out of money. So yeah, when I heard that and you just said there were script changes, they lost some parts. They just lost the money, so they had to rewrite script. There's footage floating around there of the fully animatronic suit that they built for it, the test suit they built for it. Patch is looking pretty good. Can't wait for the Fleet Week. Got my credits already for a carrot. Nice. Yeah, I've always said that I believe that Wing Commander got shit on because of the popularity of the video game. And I figured if you were not a big fan of the Wing Commander video game, and you watched it as just an action movie, you would enjoy it as a schlock action movie. It's a solid B grade action movie with a lot of budget that they had to cut corners on. There are parts of it which are just boring. The most boring parts are the relationships between the pilots, because it's like, there's no tension here. And then like the death scene that they have where Matthew Lillard is overacting, and it's just like they keep talking over each other, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like Matthew Lillard wasn't a bad choice. Neither was Freddie Prinze Jr. I don't think the casting was bad, because I've seen Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard in other films, and this is like Matthew Lillard fresh off of like Scream? Like, This is Scream Matthew Lillard, like first Scooby-Doo movie Matthew Lillard. Like, I feel like, yeah, that's so dumb. She never existed, man. Like, I get it. I get what they're trying to go for. But that would have worked in a television show, not in a fucking movie. Like, you can analyze it all day, but the one thing that I find really weird is that people look at the Wing Commander movie and say, look how bad this was. This is what Squadron 42 is going to be. And it's like, no, because Squadron 42 has a budget. As somebody who has seen multiple parts of Squadron 42 and knows much a lot of the plot and has heard the actors acting in the game before the preview, the prologue they showed, the actors are bringing it. They're bringing a fucking story. They're bringing their characters to the game. Like, they're playing a character, and it's clear that Chris is treating this much more like a TV serial or like a TV series than it is a movie. What budget? I thought it was infinite. That's what I mean. Pirot? What do you mean Pirot? David Shoup. Oh, yeah. I remember. Like, James Warner did pretty good. I'm looking at the cast. Malcolm McDonald did well, but that's because Malcolm McDonald is Malcolm McDonald. And he's been in part of Chris Roberts' games forever. He was in, he played Admiral Tallwyn in the original Wing Commander games, didn't he? In 3 and 4? He was the bad guy in 4. Or was he Bishop? No, not Bishop. I know Bishop is in there. Malcolm McDowell, yeah. Yeah, I can't say his name. Hey, Cairo, the one who played Paladin, he did really good, but I've seen him in other things too. Like it's the characters that were like the leaders, like the commanders of the ship and doing all the intrigue and the space submarine stuff and the space battles. Like, the ship battles are fucking great. Like, it's like Chris Roberts was like, this is Master and Commander on the far side of the galaxy. Like, let's do this. I was like, they looked good. They felt good. You felt the tension. The actors were bringing gravitas to the whole situation. And then you'd cut back to the pilots and be like, what the fuck are we doing? You never existed. Like, God damn, what is this child shit here, man? Yeah, I'm talking Wing Commander. I love the David Shute and the captain and the Commodore, them sort of like getting in each other's face during that. It was great. Those are some great stuff. The problem was that Blair felt very passive. He didn't feel like he was part of the story. Maniac felt like insane, not in the same sort of maniac way that you'd expect from the games, and like he felt like a dumb kid in love rather than a pilot. And the actress who played Angel was just trying too hard. Yeah. It felt like a high school presentation of Battlestar Galactica. It's felt like a Chauchet is how you say his name. Okay, not shoot. David Chauchet. Okay. It felt like a high school drama version of the remake of Battlestar Galactica 6 years before they did the remake of Battlestar Galactica. And it wouldn't have been so bad if half the movie wasn't with the pilots. This is someone who has entirely forgotten the Wing Commander story in terms of the video game. Because when I watched the Wing Commander movie, I had forgotten that it was based off of a video game. I had forgotten that Wing Commander was a video game until I discovered Star Citizen. And looking back on it, I still remember that movie burned into my head and the interactions that they've had. Maybe it's because I've been watching it. It became one of my favorite sort of schlock movies to watch in the background when it came on like sci-fi or television, but like TNT. Like, yeah, let's watch it. Because I was a big Babylon 5 fan and that kind of stuff. And this was like all of the best action parts of Babylon 5 ripped out and thrown into the universe. Like, yeah. Like, it felt like they were going somewhere with the Pilgrim stuff. There's definitely somewhere they're going with the Pilgrim stuff. And then they just sort of, it just becomes a Deus Ex Machina rather than being something. I do like the proto constellation though. The one that Paladin is flying, the transport that Paladin's flying to deliver Maniac and Blue Hair and Blair to the Tiger's Claw. That is a proto constellation. I'm sure it's an actual ship from the Wing Commander universe or something like that, but like. See, that's the thing that always comes into my brain when I think about space action. For some stupid reason, again, well before I became a Star Citizen fan, before Star Citizen was a thing, that scene of them hiding the asteroids and then popping straight up and firing missiles at the ComCom is like, space is three-dimensional. You know? It really was. Can't even think of a series that did shit like that outside of Babylon 5. And even then, it was mostly, you still saw them flying like fighters rather than, doing the sort of maneuvering that you would see. Them just going, boom, was like, right, that would work in space, And again, for its time, the visuals were pretty good. It's just, the pilot stuff sucked. The pilot stories was awful. It was way too melodramatic. And the acting was all over the place. It didn't feel earned. Like the scenes in Wing Commander, the movie, the scene in the prologue for Squadron 42, where Bishop is talking over, doing the announcement over over to all the fleet, and it cuts to the various like pilots, like the pilot and his Hornet who's looking at a picture of his family and kind of going, and you know the crew, like the chief engineer or the chief mechanic who's there kind of listening in, kind of nodding along, and you see all the different people listening, like kind of getting psyched up by Bishop's speech. That's what Wing Commander wished it was. It's free on YouTube. You can watch Wing Commander free on YouTube. I would suggest watching it at least once. Jojo puts up another one I can find. By the way, Jojo, were you the one? Recognize. Yes, you were the one. Hey, it's Jojo. So, Jojo, I don't know if you're still here, but you were linked on my Discord because you said that the relics was a new addition to the game. And so I had to go there under my Astro Historian account and be like, no, the relics have been put in there. And now that I know you're here, I'm like, Jojo, you should have known better. Come on. It's not new. It's been around for a while. It's not free on YouTube. It's only to buy or rent. Oh, damn. It was free at one point. I think it was free for like a week or something like that. But you can get it on YouTube. You can also get it on, I think, Amazon. You can get it in a couple places. I don't think it has a permanent home for streaming. Hey, Stealth Pepper. What's up? We're just sort of hanging out and talking Star Citizen. We went through the ISC. We've been talking about the new relics which are required for the Polaris for 4.1.1. And we talked about the Wing Commander movie a bunch. It's also a free flight week, so get your friends involved if you want. I do need to hear some reports from people because I haven't played yet, because I've heard anyone knows that like free flights are the worst times to try to play the game. Would you just go to EU if you're gonna play it? Well, PTU, they need to test right now. And there's a lot of cool stuff. There's brand new combat missions in the PTU. They're pretty limited, but they're there. We played and lost 2 million due to hangar bugs, but the free ships are pretty cool. Yeah, that sounds about right. If you really hate somebody, you can get them to play Star Citizen with you. actually trying to get my best friend to play with me. Star Citizen is in that weird place where if you are lucky, you can have a pretty good experience when you first log in, but you're rolling the dice. Because there's maybe, I want to say 50, but probably more like a 25% chance that when you log in, the game's going to punch you in the face repeatedly. When I went to Area 18 Hospital, there was NPCs complaining at the front desk about the whole clone respawn technology. I hate when people call it clone technology. You're not being cloned, you're being reprinted. Yeah, they definitely have more wildlines there. They're going to have more of that going on throughout the entirety of the game. These sorts of rotating side characters or characters talking about the various events that are going on year to year or month to month, week to week. That's what they call it in the release, though? What release? I've never seen CIG officially call it clone. Regen, but not clone. The 4.1 thing? What 4.1 thing? The patch notes? They never say clone in 4. In the video. If you're talking about them talking about the event, they say they call it the regen crisis. Yeah, you may have heard people call it clones from other content creators saying clones, because people still don't really grasp what it is. It's fine, but it's such a common thing that people call it now that because it's so Eve coded, because Eve players already know the clones, because you know you have clones and you die you get cloned, that kind of stuff. A good example of the best example of what CIG is doing with Regen is actually the movie Mickey 17. I went to go see it in the theaters. Good movie. I loved it. It felt like a live action Futurama episode, which was a good thing. It's very comedic oriented. But the whole premise of the plot is every time Mickey dies, he gets reprinted. So there's Mickey 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. And each Mickey is doing different things and they die. They're sort of an expendable person because they can just get reprinted. And that's the sort of like the whole plot of the movie is about that sort of action. But the way they show it and the way they describe it, it's like that's almost exactly what Star Citizen's story is when it comes to the regen. You're literally, you have to die first before they print you out. Might be a mix of Fallout comedy and Futurama. It's dark comedy for sure. Like Futurama is a lot more slapstick, but it's pretty dark. If you took Futurama and turned it into live action, it would be really fucking dark. It's just, it's cartoony. It's a cartoon, so you get the cartoony stuff. It's like, oh, it's cartoon violence. So in the Star Citizen universe, you can't do that. It's impossible to print you out while you're alive. Because the process that creates your imprint, your Ibrahim sphere imprint, is that process is tied to your active mind. So the only way you can activate a print is when that connection is severed. And it only severs when the brain stops working, when you die. So it's impossible. They've tried. They tried to print people out while the other person was still alive, and they just printed out a blank clone, basically a blank person that had no brain. And so as a result, it prevents cloning, but it also allows CIG to do a lot of very interesting things with stories. Like maybe there's a mad scientist who's trying to use the technology, figures out a glitch or a way to print themselves out multiple times. So there's like 7 of them, and that's part of like a mystery or a story you have to do. Yeah. I'm a manager. My brain hasn't worked in years. That whole corpo thing, yeah. Yeah, Altered Carbon was up to Mickey 17. I would say Altered Carbon was the best example. The difference is that there's no sort of black box. There's no box that you keep your personality in. It's sort of like that with the Ibrahim sphere, but it's not something you can just like put into another body. It has to be the same body, otherwise the mind rejects it. That's a question. There have been some stories where people have been reprinted out from an older imprint and they've lost a ton of their memories. Because the idea is that if you die and you get regened, when you get regened, if you're too far away or it's been a long time since you last imprint, your imprint breaks down over time. So as a result, there are consequences for you to not imprint, at least in lore. And I think CIG wants to make those consequences in game as well. So things like losing skills, losing certain, maybe even reputation or stuff like that. Is everyone using regen? Every player is using regen because it's forced onto you as a player for the game right now. But in lore, no, not everyone's using it. Some people have a religious objection to it because they see it's like a soul capture device. Other people see it as a waste of resources, but it's widely available throughout the Empire. We don't really know how it works because we stole it from the Vanduul. At least half of it was from stolen Vanduul technology, but that doesn't stop us from using it. Players are like ultra rich in game, like the current loading screen. Most people can't afford regen. Sort of. The players are upper middle class. We're not like the 1%, but we're definitely not poor. It was playing when they first landed on the Idris or on the planet and the ground vehicle blew up on the ramp. I couldn't tell you what that would be. Do you think they'll move towards a more diegetic approach where your body has to be brought to a facility or a med bed before you can get regened? No, I think they're going to keep the way it is. I think the big thing is that you still get reprinted. There's a 2-part process. You imprint your brain into the Ibrahim sphere, which is sort of like a mind capture device. And then your imprint they're then printed out through basically a big 3D printer as an exact copy, a clone of who you were, down to the minute details, printed off of the imprint itself, which saves all those details. And then your imprint is then installed into your brain to bring you back to life.
Escap, super chatted $9.99. They should make lore of a murderer that finds out how to reckon with someone else's body, then steals their identity.
That'd be interesting. That'd be a good one. What's the lore gen modes in Star Citizen? What do you mean, the lore of gen modes? Ask off? What? So what's to stop the police security from monitoring brain implants to track and arrest criminals? The brain imprints? So the imprints have to be done physically. So like you have to go get, transfer your imprint from one place to another. They have to get to those imprints. The thing is about imprints is that imprints can be very far away. Like you can be imprinted in Pyro and go to Stanton and die, and then you'll be regened back in Pyro. They're introducing issues with regen, though, to make it plausible that only hospitals can fully regen and only in places like Stanton. They've said specifically that it's not specifically linked to the death of a spaceman, but I do think they're trying to introduce the concept of regen as a story device. Because up to now, people don't understand regen. Clearly, based off of the chat, which most of you are very, very interested in lore because you're here with me, you don't fully, not all of you fully grasp what regen is. So it's clear that CIG needs to introduce the idea in a way that works in-game. Gene modifications. Gene modifications are common in Star Citizen. Like, almost everyone has gene modifications in the Star Citizen universe. When you're born, you're basically born perfect because it's super easy and cheap to manipulate genes so that you are never sick. You can't be, cancer is pretty much non-existent. They've had that technology for a long time. Yes, yeah, you remember everything up to the point you died. And it works like quantum entanglement. Is specifically the way you do. So in Star Citizen, that's eugenics. That's Star Citizen. As I constantly say, Star Citizen is a dystopia. It is not a good place to be. Come out extra crispy. Haha, I get it. I get the joke. Do they have a Secret Service detail? I think they do. But the way it works is it works kind of like quantum entanglement, but there's a dimension in the Star Citizen universe called interspace. Interspace kind of works like the Nether in Minecraft or the Warp in 40K, where it is sort of a smaller dimension that sits on top of our dimension. And when you travel through wormholes, through the jump points, which are wormholes, the wormholes are specifically they go through interspace itself. So on the either side of the wormhole that when you're flying through, that's literally a different dimension that exists. And so the way that regen works is that it connects you to your imprint through interspace, through something like quantum entanglement. So you can imprint your mind and then be regenerated into somebody else, someone or something else's body? No, not as far as we know, because the imprint only works on your body. Because it's kind of like your brain has to believe that you're you. So the thing about imprints is that you remember everything. You remember dying. You remember your death. The pain, the suffering, every sensation you recall when you wake up in a new body. And that process is called trauma echoes. These trauma echoes will build up over time as basically psychological damage, to the point where your brain no longer can handle your body existing. So it'll get to a point where you have these trauma echoes build up, where you lose your arm, or your arm gets completely destroyed as part of your death. And when you wake up, your brain does not believe your arm exists anymore. You get reprinted with an arm. Your arm is there, but your brain is like, there is nothing there anymore. I felt that be destroyed. It doesn't exist. So you physically can't move your arm. So they have to chop your arm off and replace it with a prosthetic. That's a good point of that. That's a good reference there, von Hofstadt. It's kind of the Stormcast Eternal. Every time they die and they get reforged, a bit of them gets lost to Nagash. Yeah. Let me see if I can get under the auto mod. There we go. I'd argue that Star Citizen is not as dystopian. I think that we, the players, exist in a more dystopian level of Star Citizen. The general citizens, oh no, 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 no. The average person living in the Star Citizen universe is not a happy person. People volunteer to go work for Hurston Dynamics. And Hurston Dynamics, as shitty as they are, is better than a lot of other employers. The average life expectancy, or the average kind of life cycle of somebody in the Star Citizen universe is you're born, you go to work for a low-paying job. Maybe you're able to get a cheap apartment or cheap house somewhere. If you're lucky, you find somebody, maybe you get married, maybe you find multiple people, you get married, you have children, and you die. If you want to crawl out of that situation, the best way to do it is to join the military. And up until recently, that has basically been, hey, join the military so you can get out of the shitty hellscape you live in. Because there's a handful of systems that don't suck in the Star Citizen universe. Terra, Stanton, and Stanton is debatable. 2 planets that really suck to live in, which is ArcCorp and Hurston. Ellis, Croshaw, Sol, Davian. But the vast majority of the cities and locations in the UEE are pretty poor. And you don't have any rights. Well, you do have some basic rights, but you don't have any specific, rights, more rights. You are a second-class citizen. When you're born as a civilian, you have very few privileges that somebody who is born to a citizen does, and citizens are very rare. Attack of the game or America? I mean, that's the kind of the point. Star Citizen is kind of accidentally dystopian because most of its influences are dystopian fiction from the 80s. Blade Runner, Aliens, Alien and Aliens, dystopian hellscapes. But also, they want to try to ground the universe into something that feels real. So they take a lot of ideas from history and from modern day and inject them into the game. So a lot of the universe feels dystopian because it feels like the worst parts of modern day society. Yes, I am right for tomorrow. Yeah, and I saw that. People are talking about the Idris being flyable. It's like, I don't think so. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be coming out this. It'd be cool if it was. Starship Troopers, yes. So, we're talking millions, if not billions of people. It's like 2 billion people live on Vega, for instance, on Vega 2. We're talking, and Vega 2 is kind of an older system, but it's also a Vanduul border system, so it's got a little bit less population. So we're talking the core systems have probably about the same amount of people that live on Earth today per planet. And of those people, 10% are citizens. So the vast majority of people will never leave their homeworld. Curious, correct if wrong, was it not the appeal of the Roman army that they paid? That's kind of the idea. Yeah. And then, yeah, that's the point. Like, dystopian, you want it to be a dystopian fiction because that means that there's more interesting stories that you're going to be told. So, yeah. Let me listen to that.
Third time's the charm.
Alright, let me line this up again. Here we go.
I know that song. I've heard it before. It's an older song because obviously it's just from 2017. I think that's from. You'd have to look up where you can find it on. I'd have to look at some melodies to find it. It's not in game anymore, but I do think it's in the. There's a couple of archives of people who've ripped songs from from the game. You could probably find it there. If I had to pick between Star Citizen or Elite Dangerous, I'd pick Elite. Okay. Oh, in terms of like living in the game. Yeah, no, Shift Monkey, thank you. I don't know the name of it. I don't know the name of any of Star Citizen songs, other than the more recent ones from Pyro. What's the most modern ship in game? Like a game, like most the ship that's actually come out in most in-universe lore? Probably the Intrepid. Basically, assume until otherwise noted that every single ship that is recently added to the game is a new ship. So like the Intrepid was new. The Golem is new. The the F7A Mark IIs are actually been around for a while, but the Cs, the F7Cs Mark IIs are new. So as far as we know, the Golem is probably the latest ship to be released in game. No, it's okay. I look for context of what you were saying earlier because it sounded like you were just saying I like Elite better. It's like, okay, great. Yeah, a lot of people think it's Star Trek. It's Starship Troopers. Kind of, yeah. Yeah, living in Elite Dangerous would be a lot better. There's a lot more freedom in the Elite Dangerous universe, too. Yeah, it's Ridley Scott, not Gene Roddenberry. Which is funny because I think there are parts of the Star Citizen universe which are better than not. The problem is that it's also a matter of privilege. Because most of the people who we see in the game, in the universe, are people who have lived through very, very traumatic events. The people who make headlines, the important people in the universe, are people. The poorest of those people who are there are all people who were like sold to Banu Sulis, who worked in smuggling, went to jail, were like abandoned by their parents, like got swindled out of their entire family's inheritance. The thing about the Star Citizen universe is that the UEE isn't perfect, but it isn't evil. It is neglected. but it's the best chance humanity has to survive. The universe is hostile to humanity. The Banu are probably the nicest aliens we've met, but the Banu would, if they thought they could do it, they'd turn us in an instant and sleep good at night. They don't have a desire to, it's just not in their ethos, but they do it. The Vandal want to turn us into goo. The Xi'an don't trust us. They want to overthrow us because we're an existential threat to their empire the longer we exist. But they also know that any fight with the UEE right now would result in such a massive blowback that they themselves would experience devastating losses. So it's kind of a situation where they have a mutually assured destruction with a detente, where like the Cold War is over and Xi'an and humanity are getting along better, but both sides are still got the guns trained at each other because they're like, this could go bad at any moment. We're just not actively trying to kill each other. We're just talking about it while we point guns at each other, rather than just point guns at each other and stare at each other menacingly. The Devarin are half reluctantly integrating themselves into our society and half wanting to commit genocide on humanity. It's sort of like there are no species in the Star Citizen universe who don't want to, in some way, shape, or form, fuck up a human. The Vandal do like us, but they like us for the transactional reason to like us. Like, it's transactionally beneficial for the Banu to like humanity. If there was no transactional benefit, things could get a little bit worse. Because while the Banu very much like humanity, they also buy human children into slavery and don't even blink about it. Hey, Master Sly. I'm a 5-year casual player. Went to my first free flight meetup. Some dudes in the server had a meet at NB with an Ice Lake. Brought my Starlancer Max with Razor EX in the back. 30 people when I was left. 2 Polaris, Blue Carrick, Reclaimers, Zeus, Geo, Cuddies, Hornets. It was really cool. I'm good to hear that, Master Sly. I'm glad that the free flight isn't totally a dumpster fire yet. They buy Banu children to slavery. Why would I expect a race to reach different treatment? But that's the thing. It's like the reason why Banu like humanity is because there's a transactional benefit to liking humanity. There's no malice. It's just like, so if there was a transactional benefit for the Banu to fuck us over, they'd do it in a heartbeat. They have no concept of like soft power and loyalty and that sort of thing. You'd think the UE military would be better funded then. It used to be. That's the thing. During the Mezer era, they just basically fucking printed money for the military. That's the reason why half the fucking ships in the UE are fucking Aegis, because Aegis was just like, we build you a ship. You have a problem, we'll build a ship to solve that problem. And then when the Mezers were overthrown, humanity was like, okay, well, we need to atone for our sins. And the UE wanted to be a kinder, gentler humanity. And things seemed to get better. And then the Vandal came back and started punching us in the face repeatedly. And that's when humanity started to rebuild its military. But it's not a process that can happen overnight. It takes a long time. It takes logistical trains. It takes new companies arising and building new factories and new locations. And already, humanity wasn't really okay with going back to its militaristic ways. You can think of the UEE less like modern America and more like modern Germany. they used to be a fascistic, militaristic power, and it was militaristic long before the Mezzers had taken over. There was always some form of citizenship system in the UEE, the UPE, and the UNE. There was still a lot of sort of like do your job and your duty to humanity. The Mezzers just heavily emphasized that. And now modern humanity is sort of ashamed of what they did under the Mezzers and are trying to atone for that. But they're also being asked by other humans to just start rearming because we've got an existential threat on the corner. But that's not everyone in the UEE is okay with that idea. The transitionalists aren't really okay with rearming for the sake of the Vandul if they couldn't solve the problem through diplomacy. I would consider them more similar to, say, modern Germany or modern Japan than I would say modern America. Kind of like the British Empire after World War II. Yes, they're fleeing into human space from another threat, likely, because they're based off of the Vandals and the Goths from Roman times, and of course the Vandals and the Goths were fleeing from the Huns, what we know as the Huns. How long ago was the Cataclysmic Revolution that unseated most of the Mezzers compared to now? 2792. It's currently 2955. So about 2 generations ago. 2 to 3. Modern Germany. Modern Japan doesn't have the necessary level of cultural shame for its bad times. I would say modern Japan because modern Japan also has a large contingent of its population which is very dedicated to pacifism. There was a large sort of movement in Japan post-war to sort of be like, not necessarily shame Japan for its war actions, but to be more like, hey, war is bad actually, please. Because, you know, a lot of Japanese personally experienced what it was like to get bombed to death, to see everything you love be blown up. And I don't mean by nukes. To starve for many years for a war that wasn't giving you anything but taking your sons and brothers and husbands. And that sort of mentality is still fairly present in a lot of modern Japan, which is very different from, well, it's similar to like South Korea has a similar sort of situation where there's just a lot of anti-war sentiment. But humanity is not a mono. We're not a monoculture, especially in the UEE. So the different factions are all vying for power. So when I say like humanity is mostly like, say, post-war Germany, but there are elements of humanity who want to return to the violence, to return to the Mezzer level era of control. You know, there are elements of humanity who just say fuck all aliens. They just start killing the Xenos. You know? The UE doesn't have mecha yet. Hey, Roy. The idea being that humanity's in a weird crossroads. We're only starting since like 2880s. Humanity has started to sort of revamp our military. But right before the Battle of Vega, there was a big movement because no one could audit the UEE military. So the UEE civilian side of the UEE for infrastructure and changes, all of that stuff was constantly running out of money. So there just wasn't enough money to be able to fund the programs and modernize infrastructure in most of the UEE. So the question came, well, we need to have money and we can't raise more taxes. So what do we, we also can't cut programs because we need these programs. And effectively, Senator Polo of Terra, I think, basically said, let's get it from the military. And so they started to say, we're going to audit the military. And it became what we know as the Polo Initiative, to effectively force the military to start reducing its pay, start cutting the military specifically so that they can reuse those funds for public infrastructure services. And they mention it in the Squadron 42 prologue, where they're like the goddamn Polo Initiative and how it's already starting to have supply chains because the high command doesn't want to waste sending ammunition to some ships for even training because they don't know if they're going to have the money for that ammunition once the Polo Initiative kicks in. So which ship manufacturer will actually build the Super Dimensional Star Fortress and Star Citizen and the accompanying Veritex? All of them and Anvil. And they already have the Macross. The Macross. The Macross is the fucking Retribution. If my theory is correct, it's a gigantic ship made with alien technology. And yes, Senator Armin Strong demand more military budget because we're only strong as our weakest link. Yeah, the Retribution is made by everybody. So my theory is that the Retribution has a main fuck-off cannon on it. And that main fuck-off cannon is the Hadesian super weapon that cracked the planet in two. It has the Goliath ship busters, multiple arrays of the ship busters, which it has multiple versions, multiple copies of the one that's on the Bengal. But it also has this suspiciously weird tuning fork end at the top of it. And I'm like, that's a super weapon. And in the lore, we know that there is an ancient super weapon which has been lost to time that people have been trying to find. And there's also theories, rumors that are floating around from the fucking Odin system that there was a planet that was destroyed in the Odin system that was supposedly, going to blow up or whatever. It was going to collide with its planet. But then there's a conspiracy theory that the UEE tested a planet-killing weapon on it. And there are images of the planet being exploded by some sort of outside force before it actually impacted it on the other planet. This is legitimate lore in the game. It's a conspiracy theory in game because the plain truth is nothing but conspiracy theories. But as I've always discovered, I've always said the stories that are brought up on the plain truth have a basis in reality. Almost always they have some semblance of reality, and then they jump over the cuckoo's nest. I did an entire video on this. You should go watch it. It's very good. It's a lore video, kind of more speculation on it, but I'm pretty sure the Retribution has a planet-killing weapon on it. A wave motion gun? Possibly. Man size 30. Parker Terrell always manages to find actual conspiracies and then conflates them with batshit stuff that the Weekly World News prints. Basically, Parker Terrell almost always has a factor of truth in what he reports because Parker Terrell is an actual fucking reporter. He was an investigative reporter before he started the Plain Truth. And he is not wrong that the system is fucked and corrupt and is doing things that it shouldn't be doing. It's just that he takes a legitimate thing that's happening that is being covered up by the UEE and then goes, but what if it was aliens? Parker Terrell is in Squadron 42. I am not joking. Parker Terrell is in Squadron 42. You can watch him in Squadron 42. And he's played by a famous fucking actor. I think it's already been like leaked. It's already been leaked about who he plays, plays him too. Yeah. Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi plays Parker Terrell. The angry eyebrows doctor, yeah. Yeah. Parker doesn't have an outer limit to his reality detector because, for fuck's sakes, have you seen the universe he's in? Like, fuck me, I'd have a problem too. The Rock Doctor? Yes, I think so. I mean, this was, I think, Capaldi before or right around the same time he was the Doctor. So it was sort of like a side thing that he did for Squadron. He's a side character. Peter Capaldi plays a support. He plays a J. Jonah Jameson type. You know, he's the Star Citizen version of Alex Jones in Squadron 42. It's so great. Yeah, it's a cameo. I mean, I think he's more than a couple. Like, you can listen to him in the game. Yeah, I mean, J. Jonah Jameson. Well, it's like Skyrim. Yeah, like a lot of the, especially a lot of the DLC actors in Skyrim. It's just like you listen to them like, whatever, and then you actually find out who it is. It's like, that's Ashley Johnson? Like, the amount of money CIG's made? Let me check. Probably doing pretty good. Typically when they do free flights, they usually have a pretty good jump in funds. It's never usually like massive. It's not like mega gigantic, but it's usually like a pretty good uptick in compared to typical funding. CIG's funding was doing pretty good before this. Where are you? There you are, CC game. They're currently at 5 million for this month so far. Like this month they're at 5 million. Total of 804 million. Curious to find out how much funding went into Squadron 42 after it's released. It's going to be almost impossible to extract, to separate Squadron 42 and Star Citizen's development, because Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are the same game. I mean that in the sense that all of the elements that are in Squadron are in Star Citizen, especially the base elements, the ship flight mechanics, rendering, the way the game loads things. Hell, at one point they said that how they work with how Squadron 42 works is it works like Star Citizen does, only instead of it trying to connect to a server, it makes a server in your own computer. It builds a server in your computer and then loads you into that server. So even the way that the game like loads in and out textures is the same as Star Citizen. The difference is down to sort of things like cutscenes, individual character models, and levels is really the difference. And a lot of that stuff is going to be ported over to Star Citizen as well, especially like levels and those sorts of things. It's a UE military black budget using ghost logistics and corruption to fund it. Glances at the entire goddamn planet the UE military hide. I tried to make and keep hidden. Yeah, okay, that seems reasonable. Yeah. I guess the thing is, like, Parker Terrell isn't insane. It's just, he takes a step beyond what is probable, but it's also not impossible to go, yeah, I understand why people believe Parker Terrell. I am, like, crazy, like, but yeah, so it's probably gonna be difficult to extract the two because they're pretty much the same development. I mean, I know Squadron 42 testers who were hired to test Squadron 42 who've tested Star Citizen in a pinch. I'm sure there's gonna be some minutia of how much different it was, but it's probably going to be vastly smaller than people think. Which is one of the reasons why CIG is in such a unique position with Squadron, where if they release Squadron, I firmly believe that all they really need to do is make sure that Squadron doesn't suck. Because if Squadron doesn't suck, as long as it in its lifetime sells like 500,000 copies in its entire lifetime, it will be able to pay for itself, or at least be able to keep CIG afloat while they're producing Star Citizen. And also why I don't think Squadron 42 Part 2 is going to be that much longer afterwards, because I don't think CIG is going to go in and make a brand new rendering engine or whatever. They're going to just take what they learned from Squadron 42, put it into Star Citizen, take what they learned from Star Citizen, and bring it back into Squadron 42 Part 2. Running Squadron 2 will basically start a micro Star Citizen server on your own PC, and the game client will access it through your computer's PCI bus instead of the internet. Yes, that's what was mentioned. Which is also the reason why I am like almost 100% sure the first private servers for a Star Citizen are going to be reverse engineered Squadron 42 servers. Squadron 42 org LAN party? No. So because Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are the same, basically the same game, I firmly believe you can just import assets from one game into another. Like, I think you'll be able to take the entirety of Star Citizen's maps and import them into Squadron 42. it'll take some massive fuckery on the side of players fucking with Squadron 42, but I think they'll be able to create a private version of Star Citizen with all of the same mechanics using Squadron 42 as the base. The thing is that what it won't have is like all of the crazy server technology that CIG comes up with. Like it probably won't have server meshing. So the private versions of Star Citizen servers will be jank and require a lot of effort and probably some CIG, some player shenanigans to figure it out. Probably be pretty small, but it's effectively how we got the roleplay servers for GTA and for Red Dead Redemption 2 is that same method. They took the single player version of the game, reverse engineered it, and then made it a multiplayer game and built their own multiplayer code specifically for it. CIG has always said that they want to support modding, but they're not going to do so until after release. And I don't think that means 1.0. I think that means like towards the end of Star Citizen's life cycle. But I think players will be, we've got a lot of technically minded people in the Star Citizen community who would 100% be interested in creating a Star M, right? We've got Red M and 5M, a Star M or Squadron M or 42M, where they'll kind of create their own launcher and their own all that kind of stuff. Something that with 5M did with GTA Sit Play for RP. Exactly. That's what I'm predicting is going to happen. I think Squadron 42 will be a breakthrough myself and be another example of games with developers who care about the game first, being another big AAA game example. I have had this feeling that Squadron 42 is going to end up being something similar to getting a similar reaction as Baldur's Gate did. Baldur's Gate 3 did. Where people will, or even like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, where if it releases at the right time, it's going to just swoop a lot of people in to be like, wow. Because there's so many people who want a Mass Effect. You know, they want that sort of galactic space science fiction story that they can really lose themselves in, but they don't exist. All of the attempts at this have sort of failed. So if CIG does it right, it has the potential to do pretty well. Does that mean that Squadron 42 is going to be the best game ever? No. It's going to be adequate enough, I believe. But I do think there is a lot more mass appeal for Squadron than there will ever be for Star Citizen. And it will also probably break through into the wider gaming sphere because people will be like, wow, this feels like an old school game made today with modern technology. Because it's Wing Commander. It's Wing Commander made today. So an anomaly in the gaming industry, effectively. Do I think it's going to transform the industry? No. But I think it has the potential to being the game that people compare to when they look at space operas. To have the same kind of impact that Mass Effect 1 had in the gaming sphere when Mass Effect came in. It's not an RPG. So it's not going to be that sort of sweeping RPG. It's a space action game. And it's a Chris Roberts game. So cutscenes are going to happen, a lot of them. But people like Kojima games, and they're all cutscenes too. That's the big thing that's going to carry it. It's got a lot of recognizable actors. And those actors are alone are going to get people's attention. Yeah, Wing Commander was always prompted as an interactive movie. From what I've been able to tell from my own discussions with people who worked on Squadron 42 and work on Squadron 42, and my own investigations into the leaks that have come out by accident and on purpose, there's a lot of inspiration that CIG is taking. There's a little bit of like Half-Life 2 in there when it comes to like their puzzle and level designs. Obviously, Wing Commander is a big influence. Mass Effect and Halo have a little bit of influence in there in terms of pacing and design. So when I talked specifically about Squadron 42's story with Dave Haddock, because I have an interview with Dave Haddock that I did with a bunch of other, with myself, Jail, and Algrid, who talked to Dave Haddock about the lead creator of Star Citizen narrative and Squadron 42. I asked, like, what is this fundamentally? And he's like, it's a space adventure game. Like, you're on a space adventure. But you're not the fucking hero. You're not the Dragonborn. You're not a Spectre. You're not like, the chosen one. You're just some guy or gal. You're just normal spaceman doing space things. You're just the right person in the wrong time, sort of thing. You're not Morgan Freeman. You're not Gordon Freeman. You're not the Master Chief. You're just human in ship. Spaceman doing space things. We say it's niche and the scope of global population is, but there's more people into sci-fi opera than I think than people some realize. And there's people are starving for that. There people are begging for science fiction, for sci-fi opera and space sort of adventures. The reason why so many people were hyped about Starfield was because they were hoping that it was going to scratch that itch. It's like the people who made Skyrim and Fallout 4 doing space? Fuck. That's great. Until it never met anybody's expectations of what it was going to be. And I think there's a wrong lesson that the industry is taking, which is a lot of big people in the industry think space is boring and nobody can do space well. So let's just not try to do space, because every time we try to do space adventures, people hate us. And it's like, it's because you don't do them right, or you don't give a fuck enough about them. Like, I still firmly believe that Titanfall 2 is one of the best games that has ever been released. In terms of its mechanics, the storytelling, the character development, it's a short game, but it is one of the most tight experiences I've had, and it was just left out to die. And it was released alongside another very tight, well-created experience, which was heavily inspired by Wing Commander, which was Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. But that was released at the same time when the Call of Duty franchise was basically dying, because nobody wanted the sort of science fiction, space, exosuit running its adventure. People were like lashing out against it because there was too much of it. So both of these games were released at the wrong time. And what the industry said was, space sucks, and not, you just didn't do it right. Like, what you're going to see with Squadron 42, I think, is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, but with a budget, and with without the constraints of having it being a Call of Duty game. Kind of thing. Why did Starfield fail? Because at its core, it did well. It didn't fail financially. It did really well. But I think it failed in terms of having the zeitgeist influence like Skyrim and Fallout 4 did, simply because Bethesda took the wrong lessons from the critiques of Skyrim and Fallout. A lot of people didn't like the loading screens. It was also poorly advertised. Like, I still remember when I saw press X to land in one of the Starfield Directs. I was in a live stream doing a video with Space Tomato, and if you were following me during that time, or following Star Citizen during that time, the two people who would never shut the fuck up about Starfield in terms of playing it was myself and Space Tomato. We would do Lunch You Good podcasts just talking about Starfield because we were both excited for Starfield. And I still like Starfield. I don't think it's bad, but it's clear it never had the impact. It's not going to have the impact that the other franchises that the Bethesda's made has had. And I think it comes down to not learning the right lessons. People like Starfield or like Skyrim because it's a sandbox. The story is there and it's interesting, but and the combat is good enough. But the main draw was sort of this sort of universe you could immerse yourself in, but you could go anywhere, do anything, and it would react to you doing those things. It had funny moments, it had interesting moments, but it captured open world sandbox RPG in a way that really didn't happen at the time. Even JRPGs that existed at the time, which had somewhat open sandbox, was very grindy. Oblivion did in 2005, but Oblivion, all right, scissors, I love Oblivion. Oblivion looked like ass. Oblivion is ugly, and it was ugly by 2005 standards. And I feel like they leaned too much on procedural content to fill in the planets. Yeah, and the looting system doesn't feel right. The inventory screen doesn't feel right. Combat's great. And I think the exploration's pretty good, but the problem was they had to limit exploration because they had to limit the map sizes for the randomly generated exploration. And I think it would have been better if they randomly generated entire a location on a planet, locations on or entire planets rather than just individual locations. So every player's experience with that planet is going to be different. There's just too many spots in Starfield where you just feel bored. You're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it doesn't feel like the game is telling you, just keep going, just do this. It feels a lot more, like I said, the wrong lessons from previous games. Or places started to repeat, yeah. Like, in Skyrim, modders added a randomly generated, Radiant quest board where you could go to a board and get a mission, and that mission could be any number of things. It can be things like just pick up this item and deliver it to another person. It could be go kill these bandits. It could be go get me 50 eggs, whatever. So it was stuff to add more stuff to do while you were playing the game, but that was an addition to the gameplay itself. In Starfield, that was the procedural generated missions. You go to the mission board and you do a thing, but it was just like go here and do the thing. There was no connection. There was no character. There was very little storyline writing, and stuff that wasn't procedurally generated was very slim. And I think that's the thing. People wanted an open world space game where you could go and do anything, but there was still a universe around you that you could interact with. And that just wasn't Starfield. No Man's Sky is fantastic, but it lacks the cohesion. It's a good sandbox, but it lacks the cohesion of a universe. And Elite Dangerous is really good, but it also sort of doesn't quite hit all the marks. It's still very difficult to get into unless you are super knowledgeable. It's still got it's got a little bit of a hop into. I'm not going to say Elite Dangerous looks bad because it doesn't look bad, but it definitely doesn't look great. And a lot of people judge games off their graphics. And one of the problems with that Elite is that a lot of it is they have to use models or updated models that they had from 1984. Yeah, it has a dated look to it. Not bad, but dated. And that's one of the problems that like MechWarrior faced, was that when MechWarrior was coming back, like MechWarrior 5, the models in MechWarrior 5 are kind of ugly. And then MechWarrior 5 Clans did really well. Like they kind of updated not only the models, but the character models got a huge update. And from the looks of things, MechWarrior 5 Clans, the expansion, which coming out in a couple days, I think, if not already out, the Clan Ghost Bear expansion that they're releasing, that looks even better. It's in May. Oh, did they push it to May? I thought it was supposed to be in April. That's good. If it's good in May, then I can browbeat Loken to help me finish, so we can finish our co-op campaign. I will say, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries was great, but you need the mods and the expansions. Once I got the mods and I got all the expansions, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, wow. I still play that stuff when I get the need to play MechWarrior. I play it. I love it. I love it. It scratches an itch that no other game can scratch. But I think MechWarrior 5 also still has that problem where it hasn't modernized. There could be some more modern things they do, and I think Plans does it a little bit better. They still need a little bit more of that. The narrative needs to be crisp, and there needs to be stuff in between, but that stuff in between needs to lead you from narrative to narrative. So you're telling stories in the game. As I've not touched Elite for a long time, is this flight model similar to Star Citizen? I remember quitting because everything seems complicated and never touched it again. It's more complicated than Star Citizen, but it still is pretty easy to pick up. There's just a lot of grind to it if you want to sort of like advance it. It requires a lot of dedication to play. It's still fun, especially if you can get with other players. All right, I'm going to be right back, chat. Then we'll wrap this up here shortly. Don't go anywhere.
Weapons free, y'all.
Genesis?
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Dude, I play MechWarrior Online all the time. 70 Alpha fire them off with ECM, just run around and backstab torsos. But I mean, like, I like MechWarrior Online as well. But I'm definitely not a... I love the co-op nature of MechWarrior 5 and the solo play. All right, I'm turning off the fun button. I know I have a problem because my butt's getting all bloody. Ugh. You know, when you like sit down for a long time, so it's sticking to you in the wrong places. AI generated missions are in the custom made for players' unique locations based on personal progress. You choose your own adventure type storytelling. Exactly. If I was to see a MechWarrior 6, my sort of wish list would be you pick a background, and that background impacts how other people see you and interact with you, and unlocks certain storylines that relate to your background. Kind of like how BattleTech had something like that, where you had you could choose your background and it gave you different points, but it also impacts your gameplay. So create a small story campaign for where you're from, a small story campaign for your background in terms of like where did you come from, and like maybe a small story campaign for what you were known for. And so each of those connect into the overall gameplay you're playing, and then you have 3 different, not personalized, but kind of personalized stories, which then can also lead into other story arcs like they did with their expansions and stuff like that. You're Capellan? I'm so sorry. No, an ad starting in about a minute though. I have auto ads, so that way they don't do pre-roll ads. So the next ad should happen in about a minute and a half. Listen, everyone loves the Canopus because the Canopus cat girls, okay? Because every fictional TTRPG or wargaming tabletop game in the 80s had to have canonical cat girls. And I'm not saying bad, I'm just saying that's the reason why you like it. So getting this back to Star Citizen though, I think Squadron 42, because of the environment that it's going to be releasing into, is really going to be able to shine as long as it doesn't suck. Look, if I could get my HRT gene modded in, I fucking would. I get it. The ad's gonna start here in about a second or so. I'll see you back in a moment. What you described might run into the Nemesis system because of the reactive reputation you described. Not necessarily. Like, the reputation system in something like that for like Mass Effect, for like Mech Warrior, you can't really copyright an idea that your actions have consequences. Because what I'm describing is like a stock campaign where if you are from the Canopus Combine, you get a mission to go to the Canopus Combine because your friend from there tells you to come down there and do it. And that unlocks an entire story arc in the Canopus region where you have to deal with some story element there. 4, 5, 6 missions that get harder with some cutscenes and so on and so forth. But that's only because you chose your origin to be from that area. Majesty of Canopus. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I always forget. I forget the full name of it. I just know it's the Canopus. That's what drew most people to Mass Effect, Baldur's Gate 3, KCD. So many of those games gave us characters to connect and choices would have consequences. Exactly. Yeah, like I said earlier, BG3 was an incredibly complex, incredibly niche game, just like Squadron 42. I think Squadron 42 has got a real chance of being a bestseller if, like you said, it doesn't suck. That's the key. And I think CIG knows this, or at least hopes this. This is why whenever I hear no one's going to buy Squadron 42 because everyone who would buy Squadron 42 has bought Squadron 42, I honestly don't think people fully have really grasped what Squadron 42 is bringing, that the average gamer, because like the average player doesn't know what a video game player doesn't know what Star Citizen is. The average PC gamer doesn't know what Star Citizen is. Very contrary to popular belief, they don't know what Star Citizen is. So when I say that a fraction of the Star Citizen community knows what fucking Squadron is, it is even more obscure compared to Star Citizen. Sorry, Zero. I'm guessing that's what's been polishing phase for 18 months. Last time I talked to with anybody at CIG who works for Squadron 42, the main focus is that it's doing pretty good. The gameplay plays pretty well. The big issue is they're working on making it work for multiple systems. So they're basically optimizing the game builds so that it doesn't work in developer mode. That's one of the reasons why it had so many problems in the rig that they put it in, because it wasn't running on developer mode. It was running on a new mode that they were doing to optimize for a specific build. So they hadn't optimized the build for that specific rig. I'm worried that Squadron 42 was made for an era long past. I disagree. I think there is a hungry market for a space opera game. For a long space opera game. Baldur's Gate 3 is a very different, it is definitely not a meta game. Like, it is definitely not at the cusp of the meta. Yet it did very, very well. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is almost like a throwback in terms of what it is. But it did very, very well. And the thing is that the key for both of those was your actions and had consequences, and those consequences mattered. They changed some of the outcome. The story of KCD2 is going to be the same no matter what you do. Because you have to defeat you have to go through the story to do it. There's like a main story you have to beat. And that doesn't change. But there are small decisions which can change some of the outcomes of the game itself. Same with like Baldur's Gate. We don't know a lot about the council. I have a theory on what the council is. And the problem is that every time I think of my theories, I'm going, wait, is CIG listening to me and then writing that in? Because my theory is that the council is actually a holdover from the Unification Wars. Because it said that a lot of the anti-unificationists, the people who were against the UNE, ended up dispersing into human space after losing the war and becoming some of the first gangs, the first pirate gangs. And so my belief is that the council is the old anti-unificationist council, confederation of different people who didn't want the UNE to exist, that stayed around because they needed to keep in communication and decide on different things to do once the anti-unification movement failed, and sort of developed into a outlaw government where it's not regulation, it's not like actively enforced, but it's sort of general guidelines on how we deal with things when outsiders get involved. For the everyman PC, essentially. Yeah, basically. There are still things being changed in Squadron, as far as I understand, but they're like minor. They're like updating cutscenes, changing some dialogue, moving some things around in a level. But generally, the experience in Squadron, as it stands right now, is very much done. Basically, anything we can see that's going to be changed is going to be changed because the stuff they learned in Star Citizen changes it. This is the part that's both unsexy and sexy at the same time. Where, like, they get to do a lot of changes to the flow of the story and make things clip a little bit better, or to remove this part, move it around, that kind of thing, which is really key to telling stories. But it's also bug fixing. It's also optimization. It's the not fun part of video game development. I could see CIG announcing spring. So the rumor is, based off of what I've heard multiple times from multiple sources, is that CIG is shooting for a February release. This was before they announced 2026, though. So I could see CIG releasing it in February of 2026 or February of 2027. But we'll at least know when it's going to come out by the end of this year. Like, what specific date. I wouldn't be surprised if it slips a little bit, but if it slips a little bit, we'll get a definitive date when it slips. So like February 19th, 2027. But it won't be something that's like flipping to the point where like it's another like, oh, we won't hear anything about it another 2 years or whatever. I agree. Quarter 6 of 2026 would be bad. Or quarter 3 of 2026 would be bad. I think quarter 2 is a better release. And if it's quarter 3, it's got to be super early, like August of 2026. I don't know if I want to start a pool because there's such a wide variety, because I can also guarantee you the reason why CIG hasn't fully said their date, because they have a date. I've been told by the developers, multiple developers, they have a date. They don't tell me the date, but they have a date. The reason why they haven't told me this explicitly, but it's the 10-pound gorilla, the 10-ton gorilla in the room, GTA. Nobody wants to release around GTA. Everyone is scared as shit about GTA. Because when GTA drops, like, it's a black hole. You're not going to get any media traction at all for when GTA releases. That's like a once-in-a-lifetime release. It's not confirmed that it's releasing in fall, but they said it's still planning on releasing in fall. This fall. It could easily slip out into early next year as well. because they haven't had a confirmed date, you'll see a bunch of other developers, if they're not releasing in the near future, are like, we're not going to fucking give you a date for when this comes out, because they don't want to release alongside GTA by accident. Again, nobody at CIG's ever told me specifically that, but I 100% believe that's the thing they don't want to do. It doesn't matter that it's a completely different type of game. It doesn't matter it's only releasing on consoles. It's like, no. And yeah, world production will be measurably less when GTA 6 drops. Your social media feeds and YouTube recommendations are going to be filled with so many fucking GTA 6 videos, you're going to grow sick of it. So it's aiming for September 17th, 2025 this year, but not fully confirmed. What, GTA 6 or Squad 42? Oh, I think GTA 6, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't release anything around that. I wouldn't release in anywhere between, I'd release in August or in July. But I wouldn't release anything between September and December of this year. January or February would be good, but not anything before that. And we're likely not going to see GTA Online, because I'm almost certainly GTA Online will migrate to GTA 6's engine and GTA 6 in general, or they'll shut down GTA Online and release GTA Online 2 or whatever. And a lot of rumors are that GTA 6 will go into PC next year, but also there's not really an impetus for GTA 6 going into PC next year. I could see that skipping easily. I also don't think GTA 6 going to PC is going to be nearly as much of a big issue as GTA and console. Because once it comes onto console, the whole rush to play the game and get the hype and all that kind of stuff will be there, not in the PC. PC will be there, but until GTA RP can transition over to GTA 6 on the computer, then there's not going to be a lot of desire for it. August is Borderlands and Budgie's Marathon. Yeah, they'll be waiting for other things to happen with PC. And Rockstar or Take-Two famously doesn't like PC releases because they hate PC gamers. They find that PC gamers are the cheapest gamers who don't like to buy stuff at full price. The devs from 5M weren't just hired to work for GTA 6 Online. They bought 5M. Rockstar bought the entire group. So they were brought into there. But the question is, will GTA 6 on PC natively have roleplay at the very beginning of its release? My guess is no. My guess is that's going to be a aftermarket release once they've finished releasing it first, because Rockstar did the same thing with GTA 5. They released GTA 5, and they didn't even release GTA Online until like 3 months after they released GTA 5, and then they didn't release it to the PC for another 2 years after that. It's PC. 5M is only on PC, and it needs TeamSpeak. But I do think that 5M will be natively a thing in the new GTA Online for GTA 6. Because Rockstar knows how much fucking money that thing has made. How much of a print your own advertising that GTA roleplay has been. With the way media is now, CIG would be safe to do a February to March 2026 release. 12 months from when they start their advertising campaign. And CIG started their advertising campaign for Squadron 42 in January. Does that mean that Squadron 42 is going to release in February of 2026? No, but it could. Seems like a reason to put GTA 6 online on PC rather than earlier rather than later. But it's a trade-off because at the same time, Take-Two doesn't like PC gamers because they find that PC gamers don't spend as much in game as console gamers. So there's going to be more of an emphasis on console release. And so if there's a more of an emphasis on console release, then there's probably going to be more of an emphasis on the supporting online component for GTA 6 on console. And since they don't have infinite developer money and infinite developers, they're probably also going to probably prioritize bug fixes and optimizations, post-launch optimizations, and post-launch features like heists or updates and stuff like that between the release, if it's a September, until like the end of that quarter, which is March of 2026. So I wouldn't think of a PC release probably wouldn't be prioritized until at the earliest September of 2026. Or, yeah. Velocity, I am not saying this is me. I'm not saying PC gamers are cheap. I'm saying this is what statements by Rockstar have been about it. I think we'll get a date at Gamescom this year. I think CitizenCon Direct will give us maybe a permanent date. We might get a month release at Gamescom, but CitizenCon Direct will probably get a very hard release date. They never do. They never waste dev time at launch. Like, they don't develop for PCs. They develop for consoles. And then the PCs is an afterthought. They do it after the fact because they know they get enough. There's enough benefit for them doing it than drawbacks. Because they could get more money, they get a second wind for hype, and people will double dip. Man, I hope we get a playable demo from Squadron, but I don't think so. I knew a guy who spent money for a good gaming PC and would not play any game that was not free to play. PC gaming is expensive. It's super expensive. Yeah, I'm saying that I thought they don't do it because they don't want to spend the time bug fixing and optimizing for PC. Not that PC gamers are cheap. They've also actively said that PC gamers are cheap. So this is not like oh yeah, they don't want to do this because like that's probably the case, but it's also because they don't like PC gamers. Will I make an AstroPub space station in the game? Nope, it'll be a ship or a ground location. I guess I could make a AstroPub space station, but there's not a lot of reason to. It would probably just be on somebody else's space station. Yeah, we're the worst. Us PC gamers are the worst. Why Xbox? If I was going to get a console today, it'd be PlayStation. There's no reason to buy an Xbox in the year of our Lord 2025 because pretty much any game that's going to go on Xbox is on PC. My beard's getting longer, chat. I need to actually like shave under this though. Because I had 15 years of sunk cost fallacy in the Xbox ecosystem, and I'm only going to use it for GTA. All right. Keep the beard, shave the head. All right, y'all. Yeah, I'm gonna get the trim and then the head trim at the end of the month. So beginning of May. I'm gonna be back tomorrow, but I'm not gonna be here. I'm gonna be on the Inforunners live stream at 5 p.m. my time, so 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, I think. Yeah. I'll be on youtube.com/theinforunners and twitch.tv/theinforunners, or youtube.com/inforunners and twitch.tv/inforunners, where you can find me and Execute. We'll be talking all of the stuff about the new ships and all the things that are going on. Sometime then, yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, the link I sent you at that time is when I'm coming in. I have tomorrow off because it is a holiday. It's Good Friday, so they shut down the schools because they can't probably have enough people to show up to schools. So I'll be back. So I will have time to do stuff. But then on Saturday we have Captain's Table, and the Captain's Table topic this week's Captain's Table is gonna be spicy. The title is "What Happened to My Space Game?" with the subtitle is FPS Killing Star Citizen. We're going to talk about the constant refrain that I've seen a lot of people say, which is Star Citizen is no longer a space game, and all of these things that are ancillary are hurting the game because it's making the game less like a space game and more like a generic action shooter, and I don't like this. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and like, does that even matter? Is it even a correct complaint? Was Star Citizen only supposed to ever be a space game? And that sort of thing. So, and then of course, is the additions and the evolution of FPS and Star Citizen, is that fundamentally bad for the game? Sure. I'm gonna check my DM. Considering the game is built on an FPS engine, I would expect the FPS to be better than it is. That's a good critique. I don't think the FPS is necessarily amazing. It definitely needs some work, but I also don't think it's awful. But anyways, that's the topic for this Captain's Table. Sunday, I am not streaming. It is Easter, and it's not that I want to celebrate Easter or anything like that super deeply, but I also know that most of the people in the League of Relic Enthusiasts are probably celebrating with their families. They're going to have more things to do. So I'm just going to take that day off. But I will be back on Monday. And like I said, next week, Wednesday, I'm streaming. Thursday, office hours. Friday, Pub and Plays is coming back with a vengeance. We're playing Space Marine 2 with Loken. Let's go. Saturday is going to be a pubathon. So we're going to be playing Star Citizen. We'll be doing Captain's Table. And we'll be going for as long as we can do. So we'll be doing a long stream, starting early and ending late. And Sunday we'll probably do another lore expedition, and then that Monday I'm going to be doing another live stream. So, I'll be going pretty hard next week. I am going to spend some time tomorrow and on Sunday getting out that Banu lore video out to Patreons, and then next week I will have that out to everybody else. I also am going to be working on the primer, my Star Citizen primer, which is going to be like an hour-long sort of in-depth look at the technology of the Star Citizen universe, the basic breakdown of the history of the Star Citizen universe, the different systems, Stanton and Pyro, and some of the factions there. So it's going to be like 45 minutes to an hour. Very, very kind of brief overview. I'm taking heavy inspiration from Bricky's look at 40K and some other approach to that. Basically trying to create a long video, but one that is approachable to your new player who's just getting to Star Citizen to understand the universe they're climbing into.
Dem biddies.
Thanks for the great content and streams. See you next time.
Yuki, thank you so much for that den videos. And also, as I've been talking about many times, I've actually been recording for my Star Citizen ship review. I'm gonna be doing ship reviews where I'm gonna break down every ship in detail to tell you like its advantages, disadvantages, why you should buy it or why you shouldn't buy it. And I'm starting off with the which is the best starter ship, the Aurora MR or the Mustang Alpha. Adding a little bit of lore, adding a little bit of like Shvetty, Shvetlord detail, like number crunching shit, and a little bit of vibes-based analysis to that. So lots of videos coming out here shortly because I didn't do any capsules for today, so I'm gonna have to do some stuff for next week. That specifically will be kind of in replacement of a capsule. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. And like I say every time, to see you someday in the